We can hear everybody sneezing. Don't talk about anybody. You got it. It's on tape.
Hot mic, hot mic.
I always have a thing. I think I could put it down by song. We're young at each other. Josie? She okay? I heard. Ready? All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Planning and Zoning meeting, December 11th. We are now going to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we do roll call, I would like to introduce our newest Planning and Zoning member, Aaron Wadsworth. Welcome.
Thank you.
Roll call? Oh, you're right.
Swear that out.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Aaron Wadsworth,
A citizen of the state of Florida.
a citizen of the state of Florida
And of the United States of America.
and of the United States of America,
And being employed by.
and being employed by
Or an officer of.
or an officer of
And a recipient of public funds.
and a recipient of public funds
As such employee.
as such employee
Or officer.
or officer
Do hereby solemnly swear or affirm.
do hereby solemnly swear or affirm
That I will support the Constitution.
that I will support the Constitution
Of the United States.
of the United States
And of the state of Florida.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now roll call.
Board Member Johnson?
Here.
Board Member Broker? Board Member Wadsworth?
Here.
Chairperson Orlano?
Here. Okay, so first we will start off with the approval of minutes for November 6, 2024 Planning and Zoning Board Member Meeting. You got your mic on.
It's on. I make the motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? We're good to go. Okay, we're going to start off with a couple public hearings. We have resolution number 2023-87, which I'm going to have to recuse myself from a comment I made on Facebook. And I'm also going to have to recuse myself from ordinance number 2024-43 and 2024-42. So I'm going to hand the gavel over to Thomas, Vice Chair, and it's all yours.
Thank
If
you.
you could just announce the conflict for the
Oh,
additional property.
yeah, for
2387.
24-43 and 2024-42, I am the real estate broker over one of the applicants.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Resolution 2023-87, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde, Florida, granting a conditional use permit in a R1L single-family low-density zoning district in the Town of Montverde to permit an outdoor storage business for boats, RVs, and trailers on the herein described property, generally located at Fosgate Road and Ridgewood Avenue, Montverde, Florida, owned by Parque Verde LLC, providing for conditions, providing for an expiration date, and providing for an effective date. And just some background for the board, a conditional use permit is where approval of uses not generally permitted in a particular zoning district, but which if controlled, restricted, or otherwise regulated would not adversely affect the public health, safety, and general welfare. As a reminder, this is a quasi-judicial hearing. It is not legislative policy setting. Your decision must be consistent with the town's comprehensive plan and the land development code and supported by competent substantial evidence. The land development code sets forth those standards that you have to consider when determining whether to grant a conditional use permit, and you are to apply the information you receive at the hearing to those standards, which I'll read to you. The town may allow conditional uses only upon a determination that the use requested is not detrimental to the character of the area or inconsistent with trends of development in the area, does not have an unduly adverse effect on existing traffic patterns, movements, and intensity, is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and will not adversely affect the public interest. Because it's quasi-judicial action, you're required to disclose on the record any communications outside of this public hearing concerning the applicant's request or any investigations, site visits that you may have conducted. You must disclose the substance of the conversation, who you spoke with, and if in writing. If you have it with you, you can provide a copy of it. If not, you'll have to summarize that for us. At this time, if we could go to each member and ask you to disclose any ex parte communications or investigations concerning this request for a CUP. Has there been any communications or site visits by the three remaining? Okay, and we're having the other board members shake their head no, so we can move forward with the hearing process.
All right. So, Mr. Thomas, I'll go ahead and just give a brief introduction on the property, then Mr. Parks will kind of go over the conditions that we discussed with the applicant. Just as a reminder where we left off, we did have a hearing on this property. It was tabled. We didn't have all the information we needed to put in the ordinance. So we since have gone back. The applicant has met with us, and a result, you'll see the conditions that are laid out within the ordinance and within the staff report for your consideration tonight. The property is located on Fosgate Road near Ridgewood. And it is surrounded by, the property is single-family residential. It is surrounded by agricultural land and also single-family residential land on the other side of it. And Sean, I'll kind of turn it over to you to kind of discuss the conditions and go from there.
Okay. Good evening, board members and residents. For the record, Sean Parks, your town planner. So as the attorney has stated, in front of you tonight with this case is a conditional use permit request. The applicant has worked in good faith with staff over the last few months in particular to try to address concerns that have come up over the last couple public hearings regarding this case. There our concerns, I'm going to speak general, our concerns obviously with this kind of conditional use were traffic, hours of operation. Would it be a nuisance to adjacent areas? So then thus buffering becomes a question. And I think lighting, like I said, those were the intensity type issues that come up in our minds when we're looking at these projects. We believe that the applicant has, through agreeing to the conditions of this conditional use permit, will address all those concerns. If you look in your staff report and look at really in the resolution, you will see conditions. So the resolution is important. Obviously, that's the guiding document here. If you make a recommendation on this, this is what goes to the town council, of course. But you'll see conditions A through Y. So there's a lot of conditions that they've met, and you'll just generally speaking, we were also concerned about the buffering around the wetland. So the applicant has agreed to put a fence up that will delineate the areas where the vehicles will be parked, so they will not go into the 50-foot buffer of the wetland area as well. One light is what he's proposing, so there's no lighting that is additional lighting. Is just a lighting kind of a signpost that will adhere to dark sky guidelines or dark sky rules, and that is really just for entry and exit. And of course, we are recommending approval, but of course they have to meet all the conditions. There was still some information they need to provide, like they'll have to send us the final approval from DEP on the wetland delineation as part of the site plan process. So they'll still have to go through a site plan process on this as well. But tonight you are looking at the conditional use permit and making a recommendation to council. And I think the applicant is here, Mr. Chair, and they obviously when you're ready, he can come up and speak if he wishes.
They have met all the conditions.
They have agreed to all our conditions, and we as staff believe that they will have addressed all the concerns to make a favorable recommendation for the conditional use permit.
Okay, so the staff is recommending.
Yes, sir. We're recommending approval, and if he does not meet those conditions and we get into the site plan process and they're just not met, then he doesn't get the site plan approved at that time. So that's the next step.
Okay.
And just one more point of one of those conditions, it is limited to boats, RVs, and trailers, and he's not allowed to have commercial vehicles. They have to be under 28,000 pounds. I know that was quite a bit discussed at the last meeting too. So the purpose is for the homeowner that has a boat or an RV is what the purpose is.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Just to reiterate, so this is not, some people would be concerned that it would be semi-tractor trailers and going in and out. That's not, by weight, that's actual condition would be prohibited.
Okay.
So the only question I have is, says something about in your staff report Exhibit A, but Exhibit A for me is empty, so maybe it's somewhere else.
Exhibit A is, would probably be.
Is that just the resolution itself?
Yes.
Oh,
That's the resolution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you'll see that letters of concern, we put that in the back there, but yeah. So Chairman, available for any questions. The applicant is here, I see.
Applicant, please step forward.
Grant Roberts, 16004 Ridgewood Avenue. I'm the applicant manager for Parque Verde. So I did go door to door and get people to sign a petition. I got 15 signatures from people that live close by. Do you want me to submit these to the board members, or?
I think you would submit that to the attorney.
Okay.
And we'll keep that as a matter of record. And if they want to review them, of course they can.
And when you say nearby, are you talking a mile?
Mostly with it less than a mile. So mostly on Ridgewood Avenue, Trails of Montverde area.
Okay.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think Sean pretty much covered everything that was a concern. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Yeah, last time I just want to, can we ask the same question we had last time, just to make sure? So I think there was something in the staff report that mentions erecting or constructing buildings, but last time we talked, you said nope, no plans to do that.
We are not constructing
Yeah, okay.
anything.
Yeah, that's what I thought. When I see that, I always like to ask, and so thank you.
So what type of gate are you going to have, or?
So we have a wrought iron gate there at current, but we'll probably end up swapping that out with an automatic gate opener, and it'll be like a privacy style fence that you can't see through to add to the privacy buffer that we're trying to create so that you can't see anything from Fosgate Road or Ridgewood Avenue.
Okay.
And we're adding a mixture of landscaping to, create that buffer. There's a lot of existing trees. If you look at the site plan, you can see from the east of the side of the storage unit, there's 400 feet of heavy woods to the next property line. There's dimensions where it's 325 feet to the road and then 225 feet to the nearest neighbor from a parking spot. So we're pretty far back from anyone.
So how many spaces are you going to have available?
We're requesting 50.
50.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll see on the map, to the applicant's point, on that site plan that's up, the wetland buffers. So to our concern about buffering from nearby areas, even all the way over to Magnolia Terrace, you'll see the wetlands are all protected with the buffer, and he's going to make sure that they're not vehicles that are going into the buffer.
When you get into some of the largest RVs that are pushing that 26,000 pounds, they're very long. I mean, it's almost like a freight train running down the road, right? How are they going to make that turn off of the road and onto, that's almost a 90-degree turn, and those vehicles do not turn that sharply?
So I pull a 35-foot gooseneck trailer for work, and I can get in and out of there. We had a 53-foot semi coming for the nursery, and they're able to make the turns and everything that's on display up there.
Okay.
And then additionally, traffic kind of will only flow one direction. That was one request from staff, was that there was a direction of how traffic will enter and exit. So that needs to be added to the site plan as well. But it's kind of, you enter one way and leave the other way.
Thank you.
Oh, and then we're only requesting a 35-foot maximum space. So if anything's larger than 35 feet, it's not coming in. Nothing with air brakes. So a lot of those bigger motor homes probably won't be able to make it in there either.
Yeah, some of these ones are effectively tour buses.
Exactly.
Right? They're monstrous. So,
Yeah.
that was my concern, is how do you make that corner? And then, like you said, most of those at that size, at 26,000 pounds, are going to have air brakes, which would be a conflict. So,
Yep.
thank you.
Mhm.
One other important restriction that we put on was that they would not do oil changes and, having mechanics come in there and doing major equipment repairs and things like that. So that's all one of the restrictions as well, strictly storage.
Now, if I recollect, the last time we visited this, there was some concerns about this being a dump area.
Yeah, that has
Has
come
that
up.
been addressed?
That has come up. It's been addressed. Paul, you might want to jump into with the history on that. I've heard it's in different locations around there, but it's not an issue.
Yeah, we looked, there's nothing listed on the EPA or DEP website that would prohibit it. Let's say for the sake their chance there is something to do, this is a pretty low intensive use because it's existing gravel on top, so we're not digging footings or doing things that if there was something there to disturb it. But with this type of use, we can't require a phase 1 or a phase 2 or anything along that line.
Yeah,
But there's been nothing that we've been able to find on a government website that we've looked at.
Yeah, if you look at historical aerials, I mean, one possibility would be actually a little further south of that where he's got his proposed parking area, but I don't want to, I'm very careful because I can't prove that. The only way to prove that would be to go and do geotech on it and determine that, but,
So you've done a great job. All the code violations, there was enormous amount of code violations. And they were all addressed?
3 or 4. No, the reason for the conditional use permit is to address the code enforcement. So they kind of go hand in hand in this aspect. Code enforcement initiated the conditional use permit.
And it sounds like, what I understand, they'd still have to meet all the conditions, which is like 20-some conditions still. So even if some of those sound like they're going to be met when you meet those, or removed when you meet those conditions, is what I'm hearing.
So it'll be a work in progress to make,
Okay.
all those conditions work. But, if we get the approval, we'll be submitting a site plan,
Okay.
a more detailed
All the
site
things,
plan.
yeah, on the
Mhm.
list. Okay.
Doing an environmental swale, the fencing. It'll take a little bit of time, but, we'll get on it as soon as we can.
And this is not something that's going to happen overnight.
Exactly. So if it was possible, maybe even to phase it. I don't know if that's an option or.
we can certainly look at that when we get to the site planning process. And again, the applicant here, he worked in good faith with us. We sat down and went through all these conditions, so we appreciate that. And if it takes a little while, or however you want to phase it with 2 parts, we could probably work that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And probably one last note, the applicant has agreed to let the town staff with notice enter onto the property and check for compliance of the conditional use permit. So if he's not in compliance, then obviously that conditional use permit could be revoked ultimately if he doesn't keep it in compliance.
Also, we'll let staff review any contractual agreements between our tenants and you can just review the initial one and then put any input on it that you think would be necessary moving forward.
Okay. All right, good job. I see that you went to Magnolia Terrace and got one. Did you only go to one house there?
It was someone that I knew personally that was in
Okay.
favor of it.
All right.
And it looks like the hours are now 5 a.m. to 9 p.m.,
Yes.
right? Is that right?
We felt that was a little bit more reasonable.
For folks and things.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Mr. Johnson, we could probably move on to public comment if you guys are ready for that.
Okay, thank you. Open the floor for public comments.
Well, I guess I might as well start this off. Robert Tomlinson, 16634 Magnolia Terrace, Montverde, Florida, 34756. Basically, what I'm bringing out, there's a right way to do things and there's a wrong way. What I'm going to basically go through is showing you that this whole process with this particular applicant, and nothing personally against him, but the way that business is being conducted is the wrong way. For an example, you don't start, basically, in my opinion, to do things right by going and getting code enforcements and then having problems to where all of a sudden you realize that you're doing things not right. You're doing them wrong to the tune where the town itself has to, put fines towards that. So that's not the right way to do something. The right way to do something is being professional, to literally come to the town, show exactly what you want to have done, have a background at what you've done, and have a corporation or a company that literally has a lot of funds, because if there is a problem along the line, at least it can back them up. We have this whole thing right now is an LLC that really doesn't have all of that that's backing it up, and they haven't really proved to the town exactly what they want to do. If they run into a problem, All the LLC has to do is file bankruptcy. And now the town is holding out on a problem that we've got here. All right. The other thing is I've talked to quite a few of the old timers, and the old timers have made it clear that there was a dump there. And the reason that they say that there's a dump is because there is a road literally going to that off of Ridgewood. That road was put there by, literally, and the old timers said that was Tower Chemical that made that road. So what has happened basically with what's happened in that neck of the woods is right now, Magnolia Terrace 1 could not even drill a well that they would be able to drink from because of Tower Chemical. Also, all of Magnolia, not Magnolia, but the trails, their wells all have to be encased and also monitored annually because of the DDT, because of all of the chemicals from Tower Chemical. So that just shows you what's happening in that neck of the woods. If there's a lot of weight or anything, if there's anything down there, that's going to cause a problem. We're concerned about that, and I'm very concerned with the town. My wife and my friends, we've been basically cleaning up our town every year for the past 17 years with the Adopter Road. So we really, really are concerned with keeping our town as beautiful as it is. So, the other thing I wanted to bring out as far as the buffers are concerned, well, there's a house right now that literally is right there on the corner, and there is no buffer in back of that house, and it's just incredible what's happened to that particular house. I'm glad I don't own it, because if I wanted to sell it, it would reduce the price of my home. So why in the last year and a half or 2 years or however long since he's had the agricultural, why is that literally not being buffered already? That should have been. All right, that I'm just showing is being a professional that's involved with that. So what I'm trying to bring out to you is if it was professionally done and we really had someone that had all of this and didn't go through 3, 4, or maybe 5 continuances to try to make it perfectly right, we're dealing with someone that, one, is a company that is a small LLC. The other thing is that if there's a problem with this particular property, somebody's going to take care of it because the LLC will go up. The one question I do want to ask the applicant, on the ag company property that you have, are you going to be doing a point of purchase there? Are you going to be selling directly from there?
This conditional use permit has got nothing to do with that ag side, so I'd like to bring that discussion.
No. It's important because are you planning on doing that?
Madam,
Are you going to be selling some of, to the public
Mr.
and that
Chair.
type of thing from that area?
It's
And the
not-
reason,
It's not appropriate to go outside of the bounds of the
well, the
conditional
reason I bring
use
that out
permit.
is because it'll bring on more traffic, all right? And if that happens, then we're going to have more traffic, and then we're going to have more traffic with this. So
It's a
we're looking at
different
a traffic situation involved. So if they don't want to bring that out now, that's a concern. So now we're looking at traffic and impact. And that is one of the main reasons for not approving. So my recommendation is, based on everything I've said, do not approve this. It's not good for this town. Thank you.
Comments? Is there another?
Larry Conley, 16516 Magnolia Terrace, Montverde. This is not normal for Montverde to have something like this. This is all residential. It doesn't belong. That's it. It's just going to disturb everything. So I just don't agree with this at all. Montverde is all residential, except for the downtown. It doesn't belong. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone Anyone else?
If there's no other.
Please come back and rebuttal.
Yeah, procedure is if there's no other comment, then the applicant would be able to come back up one more time.
Please step forward, applicant.
So to address the wells, their case because it was an old grove, not because of anything from our property. Any property that has old groves that had DDT that were used to spray those groves has to have a case well. So from what Mr. Tomlinson was saying, he's saying that the dump road came off of Ridgewood, which would make the dump more close to proximity of Magnolia Terrace's HOA property. So maybe we should have EPA look at that a little further. If cleanup is so important to him, we're willing to accept funds to clean it up. And as far as ag buffering, that's not a requirement. The LLC is for division of ownership of the property. And then Plan B for this property is to go ag, which would be removing all of the trees, stripping everything, and doing what we did along Fosgate. So that's where we're at with it. And I already have funding for that. So.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we need to deliberate.
You can have deliberations and make a motion.
This will be a question for Anita, and I don't know if it's
I
appropriate.
think we have,
Oh,
Public
more
comments
question.
already closed.
George Gansmo, 17740 O'Neill Drive.
hold on.
closed.
Excuse me?
We already had to close the public comments,
Oh, well,
so we're not able to take additional ones.
see if there was someone else.
that area is a dump, and you took stuff from Lake Apopkin, probably buried in there. You know, I've been talking to David Harden. He was the one that brought it to my attention. And he's been here probably longer than anybody in this town, and it was a dump, and they buried a lot of chemicals and stuff.
No, what the issue is, when I ask if anyone else had
It was
any
pretty
other
brief. I was in the
comments.
back. I didn't hear. My hearing isn't the greatest. I'm 81 years old. I didn't hear you, so when I spoke, I would have come up quicker. I got here before. I was one of the first ones here.
If Mr. Roberts wants to respond to that, I would recommend you allow him to respond.
So once again, prior to purchase of the property in 2006, we had EPA come out and do a full survey. They did use ground penetrating radar to look for barrels. They did soil and groundwater testing, and it came back negative for anything that would be concerned.
Do the town have those?
Yeah, it was provided to them.
Okay. So the town,
I don't recall seeing them. I'm not sure if Sean seen them or not. They may have been provided, but I don't recall them.
Well, I know we did the search through EDR, and there's no, it didn't show up as a historic landfill or a landfill site. So
I
I know.
think at one of the previous meetings, he
It
or
was-
his attorney handed it to us.
Yeah.
And we have those in the files.
Right. And we looked at it too, and as I think Paul said this earlier, we didn't see it listed as obviously a permanent landfill or even one of historic, and they do have distinctions between the two. They will go and they'll locate what historically might have been there based on word of mouth and maybe some data that they have, and we didn't see either one of those, so. Yeah.
We need to use the microphones, and now would be an appropriate time for a motion.
You can talk.
You can
Oh,
talk,
sorry.
yes,
Just not privately.
but just not privately.
Okay, no, of course, yeah, no, that's what I was saying. Microphone, so.
And you can always get a motion in a second, then the chair would entertain discussion. Doesn't necessarily mean
Oh.
everybody has to vote, but that would get the discussion going that way.
Okay. Would that be the preference?
These are hard, by the way. These are very hard because
I agree.
they're difficult. I mean, I've heard, there's not really doing construction. It's going to be just gravel. I've heard there's no, I'm just reiterating what I've heard, and you guys tell me if I'm missing something, but I heard there's no evidence of environmental impacts, right? I haven't seen anything, or there's no evidence that there's been any kind of, that can be found. On the other hand, I am concerned too about traffic, like thinking about the residents that live around there, and thinking about potentially, and again, most people aren't coming in and out every day, but if there's going to be 50 spots, potentially you could have, between 5 and 9, a lot of different vehicles coming in and out in a very residential area. So it's kind of balancing, what this applicant wants to do with, the small town feel, so.
Aaron, what are your thoughts?
There seems to be a lot of uncertainty about the previous use of the land. That's what I was going to ask Anita. As a condition, could we consider having a minimum, significant, but minimum liability insurance requirement that is maintained at all times, that should there be a chemical issue underneath that ground that is disturbed by the land use, that does penetrate the wetlands surrounding, there's guaranteed to be funds that are not Montverde funds to cover cleanup, even if, as Bob said, maybe they go out of business, they create, file bankruptcy, that insurance policy would still be impacted. So I'm not sure if that's an option to give us some security because of some of the unknown factors.
I think there's nothing in the town code or comp plan that would allow for that. Certainly the town can condition its approval and make conditions of approval. I would point out that as Paul mentioned, it's parking on the surface. There's no land disturbance that could be done under its current use.
26,000 pounds is just an awful lot of weight when it's focused on the contact point of effectively 8 tires on the ground. And that's why I'm talking about compressive damage that potentially could cause some issues, but that would be the only thing I'm thinking of. You're right, other than that, the rest of the use the likelihood of it being disturbed would be almost zero if there is something there. So just that weight factor. When it was 5,000 pounds or 10,000 pounds, I would have a whole lot less concern. But at 26,000 pounds, that's a lot of weight. That's 13 tons.
Well, the code does allow the town to impose conditions that relate to the health and safety of the community. So that's certainly, if something you want to make a recommendation to include in your motion as a condition, you can make that recommendation.
I'm fine with it. So we need to make a motion.
Yes, we need a motion.
Typically, doesn't always have to be this way, but typically the chair does not make a motion.
Right.
So, yeah.
He can, but.
He can, in Robert's rule you
Remember.
can, but yeah, that's true.
I'd rather continue with the debate.
I mean, there's options you gave us, right? Is that right? Or
Well,
is
I
that-
think what you could do is, one potential option is to make a motion. You're only recommending to the council, by the way, so don't.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
This isn't the
Still
final
going to council
decision.
no matter what, right?
Yeah, it's going to go to the council, so you can make a recommendation for approval with the performance bond condition, that they seek that out, and that could be something that could be, we could probably get a little more information on between now and the council meeting, and have that as a condition that you recommended in the motion. And Anita, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's their prerogative to make that recommendation, and then council will make the final decision.
Would we need to specify a specific dollar amount or just a performance bond?
I think it would be like I don't know about a dollar amount, it'd be a performance bond that if they default, that, if there's any environmental
Liability
issues.
insurance.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
not really a
It's
performance
not a,
bond.
that's true, I'm using the wrong.
Liability insurance.
Yeah.
Business liability insurance.
And who's the beneficiary of the insurance?
Should there be an environmental issue,
Right.
we're going to be the ones less holding back, right? If something were to happen.
I mean, normally
No,
that would be the state.
That's what I don't understand,
Yeah.
like what the,
So we wouldn't take responsibility. If there was an action over there, we would turn that over to DEP in St. John's, and they would be the enforcement, so the state would be the one enforcing. And ultimately, if there was a huge spill, it would be the EPA, and fund site that would take care of that. So we would go out of our way to stay out of that, because if we put our feet in it, that would put our feet in it, and why would we do that when the state ultimately would deal with the cleanup? Is that correct,
Yeah.
Anita? That's normally what I've seen in the past. Most environmental stuff, the towns don't get involved in that at all.
So your concern was if they don't, and there's a big issue and they can't take care of it, that it would just indefinitely be an issue, and how would that get paid for? I understand what you're saying, yeah, and I apologize, performance bond would be in a development approval for infrastructure, but an insurance policy I think what they have said is, it's really going to be on them anyway.
So if you want to, for instance, you can make a motion to approve with the condition that a general liability policy is added, and we can look into what those terms would be between now and when it goes to council to see what would be appropriate. Then we can bring that to council if that's what you want to do.
I thought that was a prerequisite in owning a business, general liability insurance.
It generally is, but not necessarily. I would assume their land has quite a bit of value. I think normally most people operating type of business would want to do that, but they don't always do. So I think that's fair to say that if you want to put that as a condition, we could look into that.
Yeah, I think, and again, I'm not an insurance expert, but I think to your point, it would be, there's liability insurance, and then there's any additional insurance if there's an environmental issue or spill that could be included as, I guess, a rider as part of that insurance. And if you want to check on that, maybe, Anita, maybe that's the condition, that they have that.
I could say we'll look into that before it
Yeah.
gets to council. Either whether you approve it or deny it, we'll look into that and report to council. So.
Okay, so I'm new to this, so if I wanted to make a motion, I would say that I make a motion to approve resolution 2023-87 with the additional condition of adding a minimum liability policy requirement should there be an environmental impact that is unforeseen at this time.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Then that's my motion.
And how much, what's the dollar amount for that insurance?
I think we leave that up to them to look at and also the council to actually decide on. But typically, like if I was running a business or business I had run before, which didn't have these risk factors, I would carry $1 million minimum, right? If there's additional risk factors, I think council needs to think about, do they want it to be 2 million, do they want it to be 5 million, whatever, if they want that to be part of it. But that's why I'm asking if we should set a specific amount or not, because it's hard for me to say what that amount should be.
So did you make the motion?
I made the motion.
If you want a second, you can. Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm thinking, so.
Think about it. Take
No,
your
go
time.
ahead. No, go ahead. It's fine. I guess I feel like maybe that's a little bit imposing. Feels a little imposing that we're asking when there isn't evidence of an environmental issue, I guess. I'm trying to look at facts and data versus like all the what ifs, which I understand, like I understand the perspective of both, right? I feel like it's a little imposing to ask for extra insurance, or maybe they already have it, I don't even know, but for just a parking spots with no construction, no building, no digging, no nothing, right? So that's where I feel like maybe this is a little imposing, but I mean, if that's what it takes to kind of see what happens next with the council, then, you know, sorry, that was a long explanation, but I feel like I needed to explain
Well,
where I'm
remember,
at.
it still has to go through council.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm saying, like, they can either approve or deny a council anyway, so I guess I'll second it then, but those are my concerns about imposing something. I second your motion with concerns. Now we do roll call.
Yeah, so Mr. Thomas, we have a motion and a second. If you can ask the clerk to do a roll call, please.
You didn't second
I
it?
did.
Okay.
I did, yeah, with my concerns. Sorry,
That's
Sandy.
okay. Board Member Wadsworth,
Yay.
Board Member Broker,
Yes.
Vice Chair Johnson.
I have to follow suit.
Okay.
You have to say it, though.
You have to say it.
Or,
Yes.
You
Yes
have
or
to
no?
say it, yes or no.
yeah,
Thank you.
So it's approved 3-0 for a recommendation of approval. Okay, if we move on to ordinance number 2024-43. An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde, Lake County, Florida, amending the Town of Montverde's comprehensive plan pursuant to 163.3187 Florida statutes by amending the comprehensive land use plan designation from Town of Montverde single-family medium to Town of Montverde office residential commercial ORC on the future land use map for the herein described property, consisting of approximately 0.365 plus or minus acres, providing for severability and Scrivener's errors, and directing the city town manager to amend said comprehensive plan, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for the forwarding of this ordinance to the State of Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, and providing for an effective date. This is a legislative action, so different from the CUP that you just heard. It is a policy setting decision. A change in future land use designation must be consistent with the other elements in the town's adopted comprehensive plan. Your decision to deny or approve is given great deference by the courts. However, your decision must relate to a legitimate public purpose such as health, safety, and welfare. And with that, I'll turn it over to the town manager.
This is, again, was tabled at the last meeting, so we brought it back to you. There was some discussion about the uses and what would be allowed, so kind of want to clarify. So the current zoning is single-family, medium density, and the proposed use is for office, residential, and commercial uses, or ORC. And we got a little tied up on what the use that she would use, and we met as a team, and we probably should have brought it to your attention at the last meeting. What you really need to focus on is all the uses of ORC that are allowed under there, and because she may do something this week, or when she turns in the site plan, it may be something different. So it's not necessarily she wants to sell coffee, or it was beer and wine, or run an office. Whatever uses would be allowed under ORC is what you need to base your decision on, not the particular use she wants to do it now, because that may not be the use of next year. This will run with the land forever and ever until someone changes it. So hopefully that clarified, and we apologize for probably not making that clear at the last meeting. With that said, Sean, would you just give a kind of a brief description of the property and what they need to do here?
Yes, and for starters, I appreciate Paul's comments, and will say that I apologize as your planner because we did leave out some information that was important. The applicant did not only wanted to, in her presentation, I believe, said that they wanted to sell coffee, be a coffee shop, but then also beer and wine. And we did leave that out, so I do apologize for that. We, just as a little bit of a side note, we are, because of that, now going to doubly make sure that any zoning request that comes in has a pre-application meeting with us, with staff personally, which we usually do. We just did not in this case, but it will now be mandatory, and we would have picked up, I personally would have picked up on that little difference. So we do apologize for that, but as Paul has indicated, which I'll get to here in a minute, it's important, so I don't want to diminish that, but it actually, to the decision, it's really, it's not the guiding decision. It's not the, it shouldn't rule your overall decision making in this, trying to make a decision on this zoning request, as I'm trying to state here inadequately. But the applicant is seeking a future land use map amendment, and then the rezoning. So, keep in mind that's important. It's not just this future land use map amendment, but it's the rezoning that goes along with it, office, residential, and commercial. And we have recommended approval for it because it is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and would be the appropriate zoning use, specifically office, residential, commercial, which is specialty retail. So this would fit in, the applicant's request would fit into the specialty retail part of that, or office, residential, commercial. Obviously, specialty retail does not fit in the R1M, which it's currently zoned. Your comprehensive plan allows, I think it's kind of unique that you can actually have this office, residential, commercial land use category and zoning, because it would allow special things like small offices and little retail shops like this. So I think it's good for the town to have this, and it certainly fits your comp plan in the sense of the economic prosperity element, where this was passed unanimously by the council a few years back, where there, some targeted industries, small-scale retail that is consistent with the town's small town charm, and locally owned small businesses. So the applicant does live in the town, and it is a small business, and so that is specifically policy 1-1.4.4. Thank you. I guess I need these to help me with the meeting, right? Thank you. More chocolate. So that is my report. I'm happy to answer any questions. We are recommending approval. I understand the big question will be about parking and noise and site plan activities. So just keep in mind that if you make a recommendation to the council for both the land use and the zoning change, that the applicant still has to go through a site plan process. So they'll have to meet the number of parking spaces. They'll have to meet hours of operation kind of questions, the same thing, similar to what the previous applicant had to go through to meet those requirements. So it's very possible that this applicant gets the zoning and the land use change and maybe can never meet the site plan requirements as well. So just keep that in mind. Nothing's guaranteed on that. Hopefully that helps you a little bit with your decision making. But we do find it as consistent with the comp plan and the zoning code as well.
Did you say consistent or inconsistent?
I'm sorry, consistent.
Okay, I heard inconsistent, so that's why I wanted to.
Sorry about that. Yes.
So at this time, we can open it up to the applicant. If they want to step forward.
Well, basically, I have nothing new to say from what I said last time. Everything's pretty much the same. I did make little booklets for everybody that contains my business plan, a site plan, a draft site plan. I don't know who has them or. Oh, it's in your packet. Okay. So also I put inspiration for what I envision the inside looking like, the outside space looking like, so you get a better idea of what my vision is. So if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
If you would give us a quick summary of what you spoke about the last time, we have a new member?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. Okay, well, I can read something that I wrote up if you'd like. So as I mentioned in the last meeting, my husband and I are longtime residents of Montverde. We raised our 3 boys here, and we are deeply invested in our town's future. I believe our proposal for a coffee, beer, and wine shop aligns perfectly with the values of this community and are consistent with Montverde's comprehensive plan, as Mr. Parks stated. This project is more than a business. It's about creating a gathering place where neighbors can come together, enjoy each other's company, and strengthen the bonds that make Montverde so unique. It's about preserving our town's charm by maintaining the historic home-like character of this 1900 property. It's about ensuring that my business integrates seamlessly within our community. The project isn't just about my dreams, it's about meeting the needs and desires of our residents. Many community members have already expressed their support for this establishment, recognizing its potential to bring value, vibrancy, and economic benefits to Montverde. So basically, you know, I want a gathering space for Montverde. I've always heard that if you want a business or a product to be successful, you have to find a need and fill it. And this is, what I think, a need for Montverde, for the residents. We have no place here in town to gather with friends or family or neighbors and just hang out. So that's it. I'm open to any suggestions on hours of operations. I'm not trying to be open till 2 in the morning. I'm not even trying to be open till 11 at night. I live 2 streets over. I want to go home and go to bed. I have, you know, my own family and things I'd like to do. So I hope that gives you a better idea of what I'm trying to do. Additional questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to open it up to the public. Anyone in the public has any comments or anything they want to say? Is that a yes? Oh, okay. I saw him shake his head, yes. Okay. All right. We'll close it at this time. Are you? Anyone ready to make a motion?
I actually have one question, probably for Sean. With the change to ORC, does that significantly change the max 50% hardscaping coverage area of a parcel requirements that's typical residential?
Let me look and I'll double check. I don't think so, but I'm going to double check. I don't want to tell you something wrong.
Because looking at the proposed layout, general layout, with getting the parking in there, I would guess you got about 75% coverage between the building and the parking area. That'll be significantly less than the standard 50% in a residential lot.
That's right. I'm almost there.
And again, I would encourage not to focus too much on the site plan because there will be a whole site plan process where she'll have to meet all the requirements and the codes of the site plan. So it's really kind of determination if this use fits the neighborhood and the area in your determination, or the use is under ORC, just as a reminder. But good question as it relates to property in ORC next to single family as far as density. So,
Holly, you have any questions or concerns?
Yeah, I don't know if I have any more questions. It sounds like everything's still the same from the last conversation. I think more of it is the concern about adding more commercial, even though it's less commercial than C1. I think that's my concern, is that I see this as an extension, and I don't see this as stopping then. I think it just keeps expanding, and then when does it stop? So that's my concern, you know, is looking at it, and I understand that it's not as commercial as C1, but that's my concern with this, is flipping residential to see, you know, commercial kind of properties. Those are my concerns, like how I think about, even though it looks, if you try to look at what you're saying with consistency, I think it's still see it as expanding the commercial area. And those are my concerns outside of more that strip of, what do you call that, the downtown strip? Downtown strip. Yeah.
Village Court. Yeah,
downtown
it's-
corridor, yeah, sorry. So that, I mean, I have the same questions I had last time, so.
To answer your question, it's maximum lot coverage is 80%. So there is an increase, and the rear yard setback is still 25, front yard is 10. That makes sense because it could be a business as well. And side yard is 5 foot instead of 7.5. Those are the differences. Again, the intent of it, and I obviously like, as I said before, the ORC zoning category for a town like Montverde. I mean that you put ORC everywhere. That is your decision in the councils legislatively from the comp plan to determine where that goes in the vision. But it is a little more of a, and it does offer an opportunity to be a little more business-minded or business-friendly for somebody that wants to do a specialty retail, maybe a small office, which is already some small offices in the town as well. That's why that ORC has been set up for you to do that. Does not mean, again, as Paul has indicated, that they're still going to have to meet the site plan requirements, number of parking spots, buffering, landscaping. It may not work. It may not work. There are towns around and cities around Florida, I won't mention them, but a lot that have done. There are a lot, and some are near us, that have done a lot to work with within zoning and conditional uses to look past some of the parking requirements sometimes, maybe even some of the setbacks a little bit, just because they want to help somebody that's coming in to fix up an older building be able to do that. And otherwise, if you were strict adherence to the code, it would basically kill the project. So sometimes, when it gets to the site planning process, or the council would have the ability maybe to grant a few waivers on that, or not. So they still have to meet the site plan requirements, though.
We have such a limited amount of retail space within the town, especially with several buildings that exist but aren't able to be used. It would be a challenge for a resident to want to create a small business within our town without us doing something like this. And it's right at the edge of our current commercial area or commercial downtown. Whether or not it could actually be pulled off there like you're talking about with parking spaces and site plan requirements, I think it's still within the core area to me. If it was 3 more blocks up the road, that'd be a whole different story, but it's right there at the edge would be my thought.
With that said, anyone? Myself?
Being that we are talking about the land use designation, so this could be a small office, it could be a barber shop, it could be a lot of things. So removing what the resident's plan is potentially for it, and focusing just on that, I would recommend that we go ahead and approve ordinance 2024-43 as written.
I'll second it.
Board Member Wadsworth?
Yes.
Board Member Broker?
No.
Vice Chairman Johnson?
Yes.
The next item is on the agenda number C, ordinance number 2024-42, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde changing the zoning designation of real property owned by Michael and Marie Teresa Kay and located at 17510 County Road 455, Montverde, Lake County, Florida, from a single-family medium-density R1M designation to C1 commercial. That should actually be ORC.
It's work up here, I think.
Okay. providing for directions to the town manager, providing for severability and scrivener's errors, providing for conflict, and setting an effective date. Now, this is a rezoning of the property you just adopted a new future land use for, recommended approval. It's a quasi-judicial hearing, so you're not policy setting, you're actually comparing the facts and information you learned to what is allowed by your code and your comprehensive plan. The decision must be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land use or the land development code and supported by competent substantial evidence. Because it's quasi-judicial, again, we need any disclosures of communications you've had or investigations you've conducted, site visits relating to this request. Are there any items that the board members need to disclose?
It's pretty minimal, but I did walk by the property as I was coming down here to the light of Montverde and kind of look at it as I walked by and went, could I see something like this being here? And does it really fit? And that was kind of my analysis of a site visit. But.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No.
No other disclosures? I think the town manager.
I think we pretty well covered everything when we did the comp plan, and so staff will be glad to answer any questions. If not, then definitely can open up for public comment.
At this time, we'll open it up for public comments. Anyone from the public has anything they'd like to add? Going once?
There you go.
All right. We need a motion?
Any discussion within our board? Nothing. Then I would go ahead and motion that we approve ordinance 2024-40-42.
Thank you. I'll second it.
Board Member Wadsworth,
Yes.
Board Member Broker,
No.
Vice Chairman
Yes.
Johnson. Welcome back, Karen.
Welcome home.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay. So we are up to, let's see, resolution number 2024-156.
Correct.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde, Florida, granting a variance from Section 10-52 in Chapter 10 of the Montverde Land Development Code from the rear yard setback for the real property located at 17632 9th Street, Montverde, Florida, owned by Giovanni Cuncha, providing for conditions and providing for an effective date. So a variance is a request to deviate from the town's adopted land development code. In this case, complying with the rear setback requirement. And it is a quasi-judicial hearing. As we've talked about, it's not legislative, it's not policy setting. So your decision must be consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development code and supported by competent substantial evidence on the record. You have to apply the information presented to the standards that are set forth in the land development code for granting a variance. And according to your code, the town may allow a variance only upon a determination that all of the following conditions are met. Mr. Parks, are you going to outline those, or do you want me to?
If you can, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, since you're on it.
The first one is that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district. Such on-site conditions may include, but are not limited to, topography, preservation of vegetation, access, vehicular and pedestrian safety, and preservation of scenic views. That the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. That literal interpretation of the provisions would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of this chapter and would work unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant. 4, that the variance granted is the minimum variance that would make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. 5, that the grant of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan, will not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. And 6, that granting of the variance will not be detrimental to the property or improvements in the area in which the property is located. So because it's quasi-judicial, if you've had any ex parte communications or site visits, we'll need you to disclose those on the record at this time.
I'm getting lots of microphone time tonight, obviously. So prior to my nomination to the board, I did meet with Giovanni, who is my neighbor across the street, directly across the street from me, and discussed what he was looking to do and where he was talking about putting the shed and why he would need the variance, and looked at how it aligns to Cherry Street and where some of the older growth oaks are on the property. So just disclosing all of that. Discussion that happened 2 weeks ago, something like that, before I was ever on the board. So.
Thank you. There we go. Any other disclosures?
No.
Seeing none?
Yeah, I think the attorneys covered it pretty well. You have a variance request. You see the graphic that's presented on the screen, where unfortunately in this situation there's 2 road frontages, and so you are creating an unusual situation at the very least, to where the applicant wants to put his shed, where basically you have to be 25 feet off of Cherry. And so he is asking for a variance from 7.5 feet. I think it's important to point out that Cherry is not, it is a town right-of-way, but it is unpaved. It's just, as you know, just a kind of a grass pathway, if you will. And so certainly the applicant makes a good case for the variance, that it is not a traveled road, thus the 25-foot setback requirement from that.
So that's not the shed right there?
No,
There's a picture.
that'd be a big shed.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, it's like
Yeah.
what it could be. Okay.
I think that's the house, yeah. So, these are always, variances are tough because there is a high bar for the variance, and one person can definitely interpret it different than the other, and both have very good points. So we certainly as staff understand that as well. And we're available for any questions.
Okay.
If they have to remove a tree, do they have to replace the tree? Is that some, I can't remember, there was something, or maybe that's new homes only, that is that only for new homes? Remember there's something about minimum number of trees or something like that?
There is a minimum number of tree requirement, as well as if you are removing historic trees, there's a mitigation requirement. Larger,
okay.
Really there actually is a tree mitigation requirement for anything above 4-inch caliper. So I don't want to. Historic, it does go up when you get to the larger caliper trees, but there's a mitigation process to answer your question. Yes.
All 3 trees on this property are very large diameter oaks, and whether I didn't actually measure them, but visually they're very close to the historic oak diameter, and one of them is right there in the driveway, so it basically would completely block the access to it from a vehicle, because the tree is going to sit almost dead center if you put it where you would need to based on without a zoning variance. So.
Correct.
And the applicant is here.
Okay. Would the applicant care to come up and speak, or?
Sure.
Giovanni Cuna, 7632 9th Street. I just wanted to emphasize, right, that we're a family of 4, right, and 2 of my kids, they go to Montverde Academy, and we're here really to, enjoy as much as possible, right, our time in the city, making sure that, we give our kids the best possible. So the house we are living right now, it's quite smaller than what we were used to before. We used to live in Windermere in a bigger property, and our garage is now fully packed with stuff, right? And we really need this shed in order to reaccommodate a lot of stuff that we have in the garage, right? So, and we're definitely trying to save the tree, right? The oak tree there. We love the tree. And yeah, the way we are trying to position, you know, the new location of the shed, we understand that this is going to allow us to prevent the tree, right, from being removed. And at the same time, it shouldn't really impact the street nearby Cherry Avenue. And it's going to be really off from the eyes from the people, you know, from the outside. So,
What is the approximate side setback from Cherry?
from Cherry, it's going to be on the other side. If you can put
It's
back the other slide.
completely on the other side.
Yeah, yeah. Can
Okay.
you just bring back the side plan again? Yeah. So the red circle is
Okay.
actually on the other side of Cherry,
It's
right? So
completely in the other corner.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Initially, I wanted it closer to Cherry Avenue, but because again it's a corner lot, I was told this was not going to be a possibility. So that's why I had to reimagine a different location for the shed, and I found, you know, the place in the back corner being possibly the best place to implement it.
So the other shed is going to be removed, or it's no longer there?
No, there's no shed right now.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
I currently have no shed.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted it nearby Cherry. That's not a possibility, so the intent is to place it on the back end. And I know the picture is a little confusing, the other one, because I actually simulated, right, what the shed would look like on the corner lot. So I think if you can show the other picture that shows that. Yeah, that one. So you see that shed, you know, the bottom corner. That's a simulation. That's where the shed would be located if I have the variance approved, you know, with the 7.5 feet rear back and side as well. So
Okay.
What size is it?
it's a 20 by 30.
20 by 30,
Yeah,
relatively small.
I know. All right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
So again,
Any-
it's a variance request from the side yard, from the rear yard setback. And-
Rear only. Gotcha.
Yeah, and we can, this is something staff has talked about too. We're starting to get more of these requests, so we could look at a code change potentially in the future on this as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any public comment? Nope. Okay, we'll close public comment. Just looking for any feedback, any comments, questions?
When I looked at it, you can see it in the picture, what would that be, the northeast corner of the property where he's proposing the shed. On the adjoining property to the north, there's another shed.
I see it.
And then on the diagonal, so to the northeast, there's another large detached shop right there. So really it wouldn't impact anybody except for potentially his directly rear neighbors. And their house is shifted more towards Cherry, where his is shifted away from Cherry. So it wouldn't be directly behind the neighbor's home either. It'd be offset to the side. Like when they step out their back patio, they're not going to look at the back of the shed.
And see it,
because
yeah.
It's off to the side, so.
It makes sense, yeah.
The only question I had was more for staff and it was more of a question that it says property owners within 300 feet. I thought that was 600, or is that based on only certain things? I'm sorry, property owners within
Yeah.
the you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, my hesitation is because we've gone around on this a couple times
Okay.
on what was changed, but.
I believe variances are still 600 feet is what we issued.
It was 600 feet? Okay, yeah. I know we were trying we were going to look at that again because it's a lot of people to notify too.
So we'll change that
Actually-
in the whereas provision, because I see where it says 300 in the whereas.
Yeah. We did do it the right way, I will promise you that, because we checked it a couple times, but my hesitancy has always been for every one of these cases, you know, do you want to do 300 or 600 feet? But we're going to address that later. Don't want to confuse you now.
Do we know the height of this proposed shed?
12 feet.
12?
Yeah, and they
Okay.
can't be, it wouldn't be, by the code, it wouldn't be allowed to be taller than the house,
Okay.
the principal structure anyway.
Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. Alrighty. Any other comments? No. Can I get a motion? No, 156.
I make a motion that we approve resolution number 2024-156.
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. We're good. So next on the agenda is ordinance number 2024-44.
An ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde, Florida, to change the zoning from Lake County Agriculture to Town of Montverde Single Family Residential PUD for the herein described property owned by Montverde Land Co. LLC and located north of Osgood Road, west of Lake Apopka, and partially east of Kirk Island Road, directing the town manager to amend the zoning map as hereinafter provided after the passage of this ordinance, approving variances from town code with conditions, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Rezoning is a quasi-judicial action. It's not policy setting or legislative action. Your decision must be consistent with a comprehensive plan and the land development code and supported by competent substantial evidence. The PUD zoning code in your land development code allows for revised standards when you're granting a PUD that are different from your straight zoning conditions. And that's to encourage creative development when the proposal demonstrates increased protection of natural resources, improved living environment, or increased efficiency of service delivery. And there are several standards that you are to consider when making your determination, and these comes from your code. A minimum site size of 10 acres is required for a PUD, and it shall only include land above the 100-year floodplain when you're determining that 10 acres. It can be a single use or combination of uses that may be approved. In this case, they're requesting residential only. The site development standards shall be established for plan unit developments in order to ensure adequate levels of light, air, and density to maintain and enhance locally recognized values of community appearance and design, to promote functional compatibility of uses, to promote the safe and efficient circulation of pedestrian and vehicular traffic, to provide for the orderly phasing of development and otherwise protect the public health, environment, safety, and general welfare. The criteria for establishing standards shall include compatibility with the zoning districts in the vicinity of the subject property and with adopted town plan development plans and policies, the preservation of natural historic features and historic and environmental assets on the site, the provision of landscaped common open space for the leisure and recreation uses of the occupants, the adequacy of public roads, stormwater drainage facilities, utilities, public services, and facilities required to serve the development. The proposed location and arrangement of structures should not be detrimental to existing or prospective adjacent land uses or to the existing or prospective development of the neighborhood. So because it's quasi-judicial, again, you're required to disclose on the record any communications, ex parte communications, or site visits. Does the board have anything to disclose? No disclosures.
I actually just walked a couple different streets just to double check the width. I walked on 8th, 9th, Temple, and Lakeside.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We'll have a probably fairly lengthy staff report as we kind of go through, and we'll make sure we're giving you all the information that was presented to us. Mr. Parks will start off, but just kind of in summary, I'll be pulling up some of the site plans as they're proposing it. I believe there's 139 lots. The town council did approve a comprehensive plan amendment for this property with two main conditions: that there be no more than 2 homes per acre, and lots will have a minimum size of a ½ acre. So the PUD does meet all those requirements as reviewed by staff, so that does meet those conditions of the comprehensive plan. So Mr. Parks is going to kind of start off and kind of go over some of the elements that are in this PUD. I will follow up with some of the conditions that we've put in addition, the waivers that the applicant has asked for and the conditions we put with those waivers.
All right, thank you, Paul. So again, not to be too repetitive here, you are, this is you're making a recommendation to council for a zoning change, PUD, as well as the preliminary site plan. So it's important to point out, again, the comprehensive plan, the town council is already within its vision and prerogative, has determined that this site fits a category that this type of development could be approved. Now it's your turn to make a recommendation on the actual zoning and then the preliminary site plan as well. So the benefit, again, as you know, Anita had talked about this, some questions about PUD have come up often versus straight zoning, as we call it. The PUD, again, want to emphasize that gives you the ability to work with an applicant to obtain something better than what you could get through just straight zoning designation. And so that's all, can be very subjective at times as to what's better, and we understand that. But we do follow the basis of review that the applicant submitted. They've met with us many times over the course of probably the past year almost. To meet the site plan requirement, or the zoning requirements of PUD and preliminary site plan requirements, namely adhering to the neighborhood subdivision manual. That is something the town implemented maybe 6 or 8 years ago as well. There are some waivers, as Paul has indicated, some parts of that they are asking to deviate from, which is fine. Other developments in the past have been approved underneath that this manual. I have it here. They have been approved underneath using that manual, but with some waivers. The thought with that is it gives you the ability, it gives you a little more of ability to ask for the best kind of development and grant waivers in certain circumstances. So they have done so. I can go through those waivers here. Waiver request, if you'd like. Do you have any questions as well? And I will point out the applicant is here, obviously, so you'll probably want to hear a presentation from them. I don't know if you want to do that even first, Paul, if that's okay. But I can go through the waiver request as well first, and then maybe the applicant. I'm not sure how you want to do it, but okay. Yeah. Do you have any questions with me? Because I hit I'm summarizing here. And I'm hoping that you've gone through the packet and you're seeing the waiver request and some of the things that they're proposing. Now I will tell you, just from a planner's perspective, some uniqueness to this project is we were very concerned about the environmental effects. So they've gone through, tried to meet a high bar on low impact development. That's why you will see the requirement that although the lots are ½ acre size, not all those lots are technically usable in the sense that you build a house on it, and the homeowner has free reign to have a lawn that's spread out. There is a lawn area, but some of these lots do have the low impact development zones set up that will be maintained by the HOA because we're talking about this as an environmentally friendly, conservation minded community. So those low impact areas, those buffers, will be maintained by the HOA in a manner that requires them to think about it in perpetuity, so that it's not just at some point a few years down the road, somebody doesn't know what they're doing is managing those open areas, and you lose the the benefits of keeping those areas preserved for the environmental reasons. So that's sort of a unique part to this as well. And I would say that also they are recommending the area for the town, by the boat ramp. That is something that is unique and special as well. We wanted to be consistent. If you remember, the first time this was heard from the comp plan, there was also a little catch where they had to be consistent with the archaeological and historical resources element of the town's comprehensive plan. And being that this is a site that would had a lot of archaeological assets or artifacts removed in the past, wanted to be sensitive to that. So there's the boat ramp area that's a public space. They're also required to put up, or they're at least going to do kiosks that will acknowledge the historic aspect of the site as well. Not only that, but they'll be putting up kiosks that would educate the homeowners and the public that go through there about the environmental aspect and the protection mechanisms that are in place of the property as well. Dark sky requirements that will be held to the same standard as the city of Groveland. So we made sure that that is in there as well. And I'm just sort of cherry picking some of these right now, some of the big points, but they're all in your document to everything that they're going to be held to. And it's obviously very important what's in the ordinance, but if you read through the ordinance, there's quite a bit of, there are quite a number of conditions for approval. Preliminary site plan, of course, I want to point this out as well. There's still one more final big step for the applicant. If it even goes through tonight and goes through the council, they still have the final plat approval and engineering plans approval. And that comes back again to you, and it comes back again to the council as well. And that's where we're going to get even more detail. I know the engineers love that, but that's where it gets even more specific. Everything down to every little detail is now at that point would end up in the final ordinance for that part of the process as well. That comes next if it goes through this process.
And just a couple little things to add on, Sean. One, I just want to correct that does say 138 is 139 lots. What's on the board, but what's in your packet is 139 lots, to be clear on that. The applicant does have to meet all the requirements of St. John's for water detention. Mr. Parks has worked really hard with putting some features in there to really protect the water and the environment, such as the swell along the lake and I guess what would you call that, green conservation space along the lake as well, Sean?
Right.
So we've been trying to be very cognitive of that process as we go through. I know during the last couple of meetings, some of the, I guess, some of the main concerns were traffic and roads. The town is recommending and require that the applicant upgrade the roads to a standard to be 24 feet and with an 8-foot sidewalk on one side of the road, and would have a ribbon curb that all three of those roads going through the neighborhoods would be upgraded for safety purposes going through there. At this point, there has not been a final agreement with the applicant, and we're going to either ask you base that recommendation that those before council be done, and if we don't come to an agreement by council, the staff will likely recommend denial to the council if we can't get an agreement on the roads. He will be entitled to a pro rata share of impact fee credits to complete those roads. The second outstanding thing, our current code does require that all new developments of this size put dry sewer lines in. Now, as you know, the town council at this time is not elected to move forward with sewer, however, our code does require it with a new development, because if it ever is required, as you know, we're in a BMAP, then the town would be responsible for those costs of doing that. So the town staff is recommending that we keep with the code and that they go ahead and put the sewer lines in case it's ever required in the future. The town doesn't have that multi-million-dollar cost of tearing the roads up. So something for your consideration as you go through. Otherwise, the applicant, I believe, has worked in good faith to meet all the other criteria as outlined in the PUD and in the development. Do you have any questions for staff? And I'm sure you'll have a lot after the applicant speaks as well and gives some information, but any questions at this time?
Yeah, I think it's probably easier if the applicant speaks first, maybe. Okay, would the applicant like to come up and speak?
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm Brian Kanan, planner with Kimley Horn, 200 South Street, downtown Orlando. And my partner here is our engineering partner. So we've done this together as planners and engineers and you know, had a lot of input together, and we've had a lot of help from staff, by the way, which we're very thankful for. Same address, by the way.
Yeah.
200 Southeast.
I'll introduce myself real
Go
quick.
ahead.
This is so Brian Ashby, same address, Kimley Horn and Associates, as Brian said. Excited to be here tonight. We've worked with staff for, I think you said a year. I think it's been even longer than that, to come up with this. It's a unique project, and one that I'm pretty excited about, with some pretty cool features. So with that, I'll let Brian kind of take it from there, and I'll step in towards the end.
Okay. Also in attendance is our client. So Mr. Tom Settle and David Stimmel over there. I'm sure that you may want to talk to them at some point. Sure. But anyway, as Brian said, we've spent a lot of time on this project. We started with a very ambitious program, and it took us a while to calibrate with your town and really get the feeling of what was appropriate. We met with the neighbors a lot of times, at least 2 or 3 meetings. We got a lot of guidance from the leadership and the staff. And we finally have a plan that we're very excited about, that we think really fits nicely with your community. We'll be able to show you that in a second. We got the comp plan approved, I think, about 18 months ago. So it's been a long, hard road. And maybe we're approaching 3 years now from when we started. I don't know if you remember, Paul. But anyway, it's a pleasure to present that. And if we could start out looking with what do we got here. Does it make it easier if I click? Okay. Okay. So we love that site there because it really tells a lot. It tells us about this amazing site that's the last large site that hasn't been developed in your town. And it has it has over a half a mile of frontage on the lake. It's one of the most amazing lakes in terms of its history of where it was after the World War II and how it's been restored, and how it'll continue to get better and better. So it's a very prime location. And actually, our side is about half of all the frontage on the lake. The rest is, in the town, as you can see there. Next one. So this is what your board approved, your council approved in terms of the comp plan. It's low density, 2 units an acre. Every lot is a half acre. And there's a lot of variety. So we have, it's not one size fits all. We have some smaller lots to get a little more attainable housing prices. And we've got a lot of big lots. And in fact, from a numbers point of view, 90% of all the lots you're going to see on this plan are large. And they're, range 70 and 80 foot wide, 75 foot wide. So 90% of them are that size. That's the PUD approval we're asking for tonight, which is the zoning. So we can do a PUD with all the conditions and requirements that go with that, which we're very comfortable with most of those. And next. So that's the plan. We have a board, which we can put on the chair here, if you don't mind, so you can see it as we go and refer back to it as necessary. It's an exciting plan. It's a very different plan. It's got a lot of open space. It's got, I think, double the open space that's required. It's a simple plan. It's an elegant plan. It's very pedestrian friendly. We've got, thank you. We've got streets that are designed to be canopy, shaded sidewalks. We've got the large lots compatible with the town. And it's got some very special open spaces that are going to be natural. We're going to have a standard lot that is typically the width of the lot like a 70 by 120. So that's the part that gets approved. Some of those lots go 350 feet, 400 feet deep. The deeper parts are very natural. We've also got, there'll be bahia grass, which is it's a native grass. So we're very much interested in native plants, We're interested in introducing pollinators. Pollinators, plants that are pollinator friendly create insects, and the insects are bird food. So we see this as a bird-related community, which will be quite interesting. And everything's buffered properly. Brian, my partner here, will talk to you about buffers if we want to. So all of that kind of light-toned area that looks blue is green. We'll show you that character. We can flip back and forth if we need to come back to the plan. Can I have the next one, please? So details, we've got lots of this available to you. It's 111 acres. The wetland area is almost 17 acres, all preserved. The land is vacant today. The PUD, we just covered that. It's agriculture today. And we want low-density residential PUD as an approval in the zoning. These are the setbacks, the details. If there's any questions on any of this, I'll come back and we can get into a lot of detail. Everything's limited to 2 stories. And we've got twice the open space we're required, 139 lots. And the density is low, 1.25 per acre on a gross basis. And next one, if you don't mind, Paul. Okay, so this is how we envision the streets. They are canopy trees, native trees, bird habitat, sidewalks that are comfortable, and it's all pedestrian friendly and all connected up. Next, please. This one is showing a little traffic calming device in the middle there. When the street gets a little longer, we're slowing the traffic down with those devices. And the main street that goes up and down the middle of the site has some parking planned for it. And there would be street trees that are in between the cars on that every 60, 70 feet. Next, please, Paul. Okay, so we get to the variances. My partner and I are going to do this together. The first one talks about style. We are not the builders. I think we can have a great builder in this community. We've had tremendous interest so far about what can be done, and we've got people that are very excited about it. But it says that, the garage-dominated style has to be modified. And the way that the town wanted to do that is that the garage not exceed 30% of the frontage of the house. And 90% of all of our houses do exactly that. They're all under 30%. There's 9 lots, actually 15 lots, that are some are 60s and some are 50s, and they would not be any different from what's typically around that you're familiar with, which is about 50 to 60%. Okay, next, on the variance, sorry, did I skip one? Can you go back? So that's the garage dominated. I guess we may as well go one by one. Is this number 2? I think we've got to get back. Backwards. The other way, yeah. Okay, so that was style and garage, sorry. Okay, so the town had a requirement for 50-foot wide lots or less, and we don't have any less, to be rear loaded, so we really don't have to worry about that one because they're all about 50 feet or 50 or more. And then there was a requirement that a lot of them need to be rear loaded. Well, the problem with the rear loading is these lots are they're half acre, and lots of them very deep, 300, 400 feet deep, so you can't really rear load them. And I think one of the benefits of going to the big lots is you don't have to worry about alleys and the high density you get with that condition. That was designed for more intense subdivisions. So that one, we can go to garage sizes. Way back in the day, someone thought the garage sizes should be really big. Not sure why. They probably thought there should be a lot of storage in the garage. We don't like that. I don't think you like it either, because the garage is not the friendly part of the house. So we want to limit that, and this requirement required very big, wide garages. I don't think any builder is typically doing that, so we'd like a variance on that. Next, please. Okay, this one says that no block should have more than 2 consecutive single-family homes with the same house plan. We need to talk a little bit about that. When a builder comes in with a house plan, they're probably going to have 3 or 4 different elevations and different roofs to where you wouldn't even recognize that the plan was the same. So I think the intent was to get some variety in dynamic streetscapes, but you can get that without having a completely different plan next to each other. So I think staff would probably concur with that. So we want to get relief on that one. Exterior finishes. It's hard to tell what we're going to have with the house designs at this point, but the builders we've talked to would like to be able to use, if they want, some brick or veneer. We're not sure why that's prohibited. You can get some beautiful houses that are traditional and more historic with those finishes, so that we want consideration on that. And then on retaining walls, I'm going to have Brian deal with that one.
Sure. So under the, sorry about that. Under the current code, we're asking for a variance for retaining walls to exceed 60 inches in height or 5 feet. This site has, if you've ever been out there, there is a lot of topography on this site. I mean, there is over 100 feet of fall across this site. And so with that, retaining walls are needed just in order to meet FHA grading requirements on a lot, right? No more than a 4-to-1 slope, things of that nature. And so in order to do that, we can do it in one of 2 ways. One would be to have one single retaining wall that is over 5 feet in height. That is a little bit easier to maintain because it's just a single structure. Or you can do that with tiered retaining walls, right? That takes up more room, more space. So a 5-foot wall with a 5-foot, 6-foot grass, another 5-foot wall, 5-foot, 6-foot grass, which becomes very difficult to maintain if anything ever happens, because now you have multiple tiered structures that you're kind of grading and doing maintenance around. And so we're asking for a little bit of relief on that to go to a single wall structure, just really for future maintenance by the HOA, if that's ever needed. If you drive around some of the communities that are right around here, Claremont, Groveland, you'll see some of these single wall structures that are very similar. It really just comes down to ease of maintenance in the future. So. Sure. And then this one is traffic calming, so intersections along the primary entry road of more than 10 lots to have a traffic circle at the main entry. Traffic circles create a very large feature, and for something a development that is about 139 lots, the amount of traffic we're seeing coming into here, it's about 2 cars during peak hour, 2 cars a minute, and what we're doing instead is providing traffic calming features throughout the road network instead of one large traffic circle at the main entrance. And so we're asking for some consideration there. In lieu of one large traffic circle at the entrance, multiple traffic calming devices throughout our straight roads where people can actually get some speed and help choke that speed down and slow that down and keep the pedestrians safe.
On the next one, it's a good solution when you have a high density project and the lots are small and they're packed together. You want small walkable blocks, but we've got the opposite. And so our idea is to limit the amount of hard surfaces that are reflecting heat up, that are creating more runoff and creating a lot more pavement, which is costly. And we've got a very beautifully connected low-density community, so we'd like you to consider that one as well. I think that summarizes all the, is there one more? Oh, okay, Brian. Yeah. We're pulling water from the lake, I believe, and I think everybody's agreed to that, so it should be okay.
The first one's about canopy coverage.
Yeah. Okay. The first one, relates the size of trees to the size of the planting strip. So we've done, literally hundreds and hundreds of miles of roadway where we've had to deal with bringing canopy trees in to shade the sidewalks so we have walkable neighborhoods. And we found that everywhere we've gone, 8 foot has been perfectly adequate to deal with the street canopy trees we want. So this is a little excessive. And the reason we're not comfortable with that is we get more grass that's got to be mowed, more grass that's got to be fertilized with pesticide, and it's not usable. So we want to be functional about it. We want to have the right amount of distance for those trees to grow without disrupting sidewalks and so forth. But we don't want to have excessive areas that take high maintenance, lots of mowing, lots of pesticide, lots of fertilizer. Sort of want to go the other way. But we do know the 8 foot will work. And we can show you the cross section, which I think's in here somewhere, if necessary. I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of this.
And then for the last one, it's the water conservation element of any subdivision more than 25 lots shall use non-potable sources for landscaping irrigation. There's no reclaim available at this time, so that's one of the reasons we're asking for the waiver. One thing we are investigating right now is actually doing a stormwater reuse system, so pulling water from Lake Apopka to use for irrigation. We've actually started those conversations with the Water Management District, but in case we are unable to pull water from Lake Apopka to irrigate the landscaping, we are asking for some consideration of allowing for potable water to be used if we are unsuccessful in being able to irrigate from Lake Apopka, which we are currently working with. We had a couple meetings with St. John's, and but yes, hence the reason for the waiver request here.
Yeah, thanks. We're happy to answer any questions on this part, and then Brian's got some more detailed engineering style drawings, which are part of the presentation. He can go into that, so it's your choice, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Want to keep going? Complete.
Yeah, I think it's best
This is a
you
whole
guys.
presentation.
Yeah.
So on the screen right now is kind of our vision. It was in the news somewhat recently. Cape Canaveral just did their first ever rain garden. I was the engineer of record for that. We're looking at doing these small small rain gardens in our dry retention areas. This is kind of a vision for what this is kind of going to look like. Very visually appealing, a little bit more nutrient removal than just a standard retention pond. More native plants, as Brian was saying, attracts more birds, things of that nature. We really kind of laid this whole subdivision out as a conservation subdivision around the wetlands, around the existing topography of the site, Lake Apopka, and really minimizing the impact to the environment, but while also integrating those into the design, as Sean said earlier, having stormwater ponds in the rear of lots, right? It makes it more of a community kind of focused feature. It also we also are proposing them to be in HOA owned and maintained easements, or HOA maintained easements. That way, they are preserved in perpetuity from here on out, so that way when a developer walks away, they don't just get overgrown or are not serving their intended purpose. Again, low impact opportunities. This is just kind of a vision that we have. Me and Brian have worked a lot together on low impact development communities. Like I said, Cape Canaveral was one that was just opened up to resolve some flooding and also additional nutrient removal. And again, this is kind of a vision we have for some of our stormwater features in the rear of some of these lots, throughout the community. Again, more native plants, which is a requirement of code, Florida friendly. We intend to adhere to a Florida friendly plant and landscape base. Dark skies, which Sean already talked about. And then here is the overall site plan, consistent with the PUD plan, the nice colored PUD plan that's on. This is an easement plan. So this plan's important. I like this plan because this really tells the whole story of what areas are going to be maintained by the HOA in perpetuity, what areas that we're preserving. The area, and I'll just start from the left-hand side of the screen and work my way to the right. So on the left-hand side of the screen in green is the existing wetlands that are out there today. We have no intention of touching them. We want to preserve them. We are not looking to impact a single wetland on that west side. It creates a natural connectivity to Lake Apopka. Lake Apopka actually hydrates those wetlands. And what we are proposing, though, is to provide the town, dedicate to the town an easement, a 30-foot trail easement for future trail connectivity through those wetlands. That could be via elevated boardwalk, something like that, to not disrupt the wetlands. But the developer has agreed to include that on the preliminary plat and ultimately record that and dedicate the rights to that to the town for a future trail that is kind of planned to kind of come up through that wetland area. As we move our way to the right, you'll see a lot of blue in the middle and behind some of these lots. And as we talked about the rear loaded waiver for any lots that are 50 feet or less, if we were to go to a rear loaded type of subdivision, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing here, which is incorporating stormwater features on the properties themselves and placing them in an easement that really is visually appealing, makes sure that they're maintained in perpetuity, provides us the opportunity to maintain those half-acre lots that are required by the comprehensive plan, and allows us just to provide a really unique subdivision. Actually, the whole reason I got this idea is it's identical to the neighborhood I grew up in Sarasota, Florida. And so when we were looking at ways to kind of come up with unique opportunity to provide people an opportunity more than just a grass flat area in their backyard, how do we enhance that a little bit more for those residences, for the folks living there? And again, that's the dry retention with the enhanced landscaping, the rain gardens that are going to be at the outfalls into each one of these ponds and at the control structures of each one of these ponds to provide additional nutrient removal. Further east, further to the right, in blue, again, is that protective swale that is required by the town and St. John's River Water Management District. And again, so instead of just placing the swale itself within an easement, we're going to place from the swale all the way down to the water's edge or the sovereign upland line an easement, so that remains in the HOA control. They maintain it. They have the authority to make sure whatever property owner has the rights to that lot, they have to get approval from the HOA and St. John's River Water Management District in order to do anything. Right now, we're not proposing any sort of docks or anything like that, but that easement protects that eastern shoreline of Lake Apopka in perpetuity by the HOA, and doesn't just give the rights just to the owner. They have to work with the HOA if they were to try to change anything other than what we're proposing, which is really just a grade down to the natural shoreline there. And then on the far bottom side of the screen, there's another easement. It's very difficult to see it on this, but it literally is the furthest southern buffer that we have, where we're dedicating a trail easement as well to the town. Again, future connectivity potentially to that trail through the wetlands, but there's a trail easement there as well for a future planned trail, and so keeping that on the property as well. Any questions on the easement plan? Next slide. And keep going. Okay, yeah. This is just the overall paving, grading, and drainage plan. This is preliminary. Really, this really kind of shows where the stormwater ponds will be high level, more so than just the blue kind of area. This kind of shows kind of the grading features. You can see there's a lot of topography on this site. It's a very challenging site from an engineering perspective as far as topography is concerned. The walls that really we're asking for the waiver for is along that western side adjacent to the wetlands. And that's to protect access to an individual who lives to the north. They have an easement and a dirt access road. So that's to provide protection for that, to keep that there, as well as protection of the wetlands. And the folks right now the residents that would ever purchase a lot on any of those western lots would actually have a view above the tree canopy there. So very nice feature. It protects the natural features and also provides a really nice view for those residences. And then this is just the overall utility plan. There's sources of potable water out there today that we plan to tie into to provide potable water. There is no sewer capacity, so we are proposing a distributed wastewater system, which is not a traditional septic tank. It's advanced. It provides higher levels of nutrient removal for sanitary sewer. It's almost like having your own individual package plant or wastewater treatment facility almost on your lot. And then that ends up going to a gravity system, similar, essentially the dry lines that the town would be requesting. Those would go to a gravity sewer system to a lift station, and that lift station would then pump that to a septic drain field that is located along the southern side of the property there. So it's a community, essentially, drain field to provide sanitary sewer service. With that, I think that's it. Yes, sir.
Same size?
Yeah, they will be sized, so it's a two-part system. One is from the house itself. It will go to a treatment box, and then from there, after it goes through its treatment, usually it's what it's going to be. We're looking at two options right now. It's either going to be a dual home served box, size for 2 homes, or a single home. It just depends on kind of how the layout will end up working out, whether it'll be a single lot box or a double lot box. It's just the size of it. And then from there, once it's treated, gravity's down to a lift station and then gets pumped to a shared a drain field. So yes.
And where is that proposed? I'm trying to see that in the drawing.
That's
is
in
that the yellow?
Yes, the yellow on the far south side. Yes.
And just for clarity, is that the on-site DWTS system?
Yes, that's the
I
on-site
think
system.
Most people are aware of that.
Oh,
It's
okay.
Same thing
Yeah, it's
towns
the
been doing.
on-site sewer,
Yeah.
singular
So
sewer.
it's advanced
Yep.
decentralized wastewater
Okay.
treatment
Okay.
system that the
So
towns
once it goes
utilize.
there, it's actually already treated and,
It's just like, it's similar. Once you get like a drain field for a septic tank, it percolates into the ground for that extra level of treatment. But the actual distributed wastewater or the on-site system, those boxes themselves provide an additional level beyond a standard septic system.
yeah, what I was thinking, I heard lift station, and every time I think of lift station, I think of something that's actually moving something that's not treated. But by the time it gets to the lift station, you're saying it's already treated.
It's got its first level of treatment before you're
Then
then
it goes.
percolating
Okay.
into the ground, like a traditional drain field.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because there's homes on the other side of that, and I was trying to understand well, there's homes on both sides, I guess, right? The community side and then
Yep.
the Virginia Circle and all the other ones there that I just wanted to understand like the impact there to both sides.
Yes, and we've laid this out, meeting all DEP requirements as far as separation from potable water sources, lot lines, other residences, things like that, to ensure we're meeting all state criteria for that.
Okay.
How many lift stations?
Just one. Yeah, just one. Very small horsepower. It's not a ton of flow. Very, very small.
Where do you propose that lift station would sit, in the northwest corner?
Yep, exactly.
Right there on the loop?
Mm-hmm. You got it. It's actually cut out. It's adjacent to the pond. Yeah, you can see it. It's about a 40 by 40 tract.
And that's okay with the proximity to the wetlands? When you say loop, I'm thinking
It's on
Our
the
top-
inside, it's on the inside of the, so it's on the east side of the road, I
Oh,
guess you
okay,
would
so
say.
it's not on the other side of the
No,
road.
no,
Okay,
no.
I see.
Nope.
By the blue retention.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yep.
that little corner nook, okay.
Correct.
That's interesting with all the other discussions that we've had about on-site in general.
Yep.
The remote drain field or the remote seepage field, effectively a rib system, I didn't know was really an option. So, okay.
It's essentially, if I can provide a little clarification there of how we worked with Onsite to come up with that, each individual lot or 2 lots at a time can have a shared drain field. And talking with them, you can essentially, it's almost like Legos. You can kind of build that drain field as large as you need and place it wherever you need. So instead of having it on individual lots, individual services, one larger septic drain field just became much more efficient. Yeah.
So it's not I'm trying to think about responsibility, and I always think of individual homes having the individual responsibility, but it sounds like that's, if it's
HOA.
It's within an
HOA
easement.
then,
It's
yeah.
within an easement. That is the responsibility of the HOA.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, we are asking the HOA take care of this particular DWTS system, because the private entity can. So with that, from my understanding, DWTS, the water's treated there at the home, and then they're going to move, that treated water comes out of DWTS and our systems, the drain field's right there in the property owner's front yard, and their proposed system, they're gonna move it and then have a drain field to put it in. So it's already gone through that treatment process. It's, when they say the final, it's just kind of the distribution, and you get a final, gets cleanliness of it.
Correct.
So I didn't see like a traffic study in here. I know we talked about many times over, but I didn't see anything in here about the proposed plan. And because at one time we didn't know where the entrances and exits were going to be. So has there been or is there supposed to be a traffic study done to understand kind of the flow? At one point it was a D or an E, maybe, if I remember.
Yeah, and I
Do you
think they were
remember?
doing, well, I think they were maybe doing 1 or 2
Yeah, they were. So at one point it was,
entrances.
yeah,
and
2, I think,
exits.
yeah.
Yes, there has been a traffic study done. It was recently completed because the traffic study we had done before was a much more dense community when we first, so this one, we had it redone for the 139 lots that we're showing now. During the peak hour, it's about 135 trips in the peak hour, which is about 2.2 cars per minute. I don't know how you get to 0.2, but 2.2 cars per minute additional for all 3 entrances combined is what that would look like. So from the entire community, 135 PM peak hour trips.
And that's not just residents though coming in and out, that's everything. So.
Based off of industry standards,
Yeah.
it's
You
yeah,
know
all
what I'm saying?
trips,
Like,
correct.
There's everything, there's like, but there's
Amazon.
delivery trucks or whatever, right? The
Correct.
Amazon Prime, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Kroger's, right?
Probably, yes.
And that
Okay,
would
so
be 9th Street, 8th Street, and Temple Street are
Yeah.
the 3 entrances or
Yeah,
exits.
that's what I saw, so.
What is proposed for Lakeside?
Nothing is proposed. I'm sorry, when you say proposed, I guess, what
Like
do you mean?
improvements? Like it's I think it's, what, about 17 feet wide? And
Yeah.
you're asking all these cars to come down Lakeside and go to these 3 entrances.
Gerard, are you doing a?
Yeah, so Karen, maybe I can answer that real quick. The town's actually in the process. We have a grant to improve that road, which has already been in the works for a while, and that's already been out to bid, and council will be voting at the next meeting to
So
approve that.
that's the town's taking care of that?
The town's taking that through a grant, correct?
Okay, gotcha.
Will that include fixing that lovely intersection we have there? Because
No, that's a whole nother story.
Okay. Yeah, because you know it's all gonna dump, not all of it, but if people are coming down Temple, and they'll hit Lakeside and then potentially come to that, into that section where there's that whatever, flashing light, so I'm just thinking about traffic.
Are there going to be any improvements to 8th, 9th, or Temple?
At this moment, we're not proposing any improvements to 8th, 9th, or Temple. They're operational today. So as of right now, no, we aren't proposing any. Everything internal to the community will meet current town of Montverde standards, but right now there are no proposed improvements to either of those streets.
But what you have here is that there's, sorry, I'm reading here, maybe that's what you were talking about earlier was, I'm sorry, I'm reading page 5, draft V5 section that says transportation, number 3, just a typo obviously that says Mount Dora, it should be obviously Montverde, but it just says following access roads. Oh, is Mount Dora? Oh. I assumed that was.
Yeah, we adopted the Mount Dora standards.
Oh, okay. So either way though, it says leading into the development, 8th, 9th, and Temple must be improved.
Yeah, so
This
the
is standard.
staff's position is that the developer needs to improve these roads.
Yeah.
And we've been very clear about that from the beginning. And there's obviously safety issues with the roads and the condition they're at with the increased traffic. And so that's why, as a condition of this approval, we want those roads approved.
And what are they right now? Like, do you know the widths of 8th, 9th, and 10th?
I do.
She walked them?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're actually, Temple's about 22 feet wide, Lakeside, which is irrelevant, I'll say 8th and 9th are both about 17 feet wide.
Yeah.
Which is
Barely fit 2 cars.
really, really narrow.
And so, currently, we do have the Mount Dora standard, which would be, curb, gutter, and storm collection system. Town's proposing something in the middle. When we've listened through the CUP, a lot of the residents don't necessarily want that to look like a urban city street, and there's probably not the need to go to that level. But what our recommendation is that it would be a 24-foot wide road, the width that's in the Mount Dora standard, with a concrete ribbon curb on both sides, and then that they place a 8-foot sidewalk on one side in lieu of 2 6-foot on each side of the road. So it just makes a wider walk for people to get by, which, considering the topography and the mailboxes and stuff in the area, would work better.
Yeah, that's a big sidewalk though. If you're looking at, just living here long enough to know what 8th, 9th, and Temple look like. If you're adding 8 feet, plus you're adding on, 2 to 5 feet per road, depending on the road size, then you're adding 8 feet.
Yeah, I think all the right-of-ways in there are 60 to 80 feet, so we have plenty of room in there.
Well, right-of-way is different than saying, property owners today don't have that, and now they're gonna have this 8-foot sidewalk running right through the front of their yard, right? That's a big.
Would it be actually less than the code, which would be a 6-foot on both sides, which the code currently requires? So less width, I guess, then, that would be 12. But it's obviously your recommendation. That's staff recommendation after looking at the area, knowing some people will probably want to walk down there, bike down their stroller.
Yeah, no, I'm not, it's not the necessary, but I'm thinking we're adding on a couple feet, so we're taking, I know it's easement, I get that,
Sure.
but I'm thinking about just people's properties right now, and they have grass in their driveway and their house, and now it's encroaching, and I get that's easement, but I'm concerned about taking away somebody's frontage, right? For a very large, kind of like a trail, right? 8 foot is almost like a trail, kind of. And that to me is like, could be right up on someone's front porch almost, if you look at their house, the house is there.
Yeah.
I guess it depends which side of the street, but
Sure.
I don't know if anybody here is aware of that, but I think that's just a concern, and I don't know if residents care or not, but if I think about putting it, that's another 10 to 14 feet pulling this way into someone's currently grass front house, or front of their house.
Is
Well,
that,
it would be split, right,
No,
between
he
two
said
sides,
8. He
two
said-
sides of the street, though.
No, he said 8 feet.
Just one side
On
of the
one
street
side.
would be the sidewalk.
Correct, but like on 8th and 9th, where they said they were 17 feet wide. You're going to a
Roughly.
24
You're going to
foot road
20.
with an 8-foot sidewalk. So that's a net 15 feet of total expansion.
Right.
You're taking away 7 feet from one side,
And
taking
then
away 7
15.
feet from the other side.
Yeah.
Now, one side's going to get more road and one side's going to get
Right,
more sidewalk,
right.
but 7
Maybe,
feet.
yeah.
I'm just remembering back to some of the meetings we had. And I think you're onto something because it's a look and it's a feel, and it's kind of relaxed right now. This is making it more urban. I'm not sure that's really what everybody feels like. I remember one lady, there was a lady telling me she didn't want a sidewalk. She liked it the way it is, you know. So I think it's a little bit controversial in terms of what the neighbors would want. I understand the functionality that we're striving for. We think the traffic's okay with, 2 cars per minute.
I think just the sidewalks, right, Sean? They're
So the road width is a safety
right.
thing. We have
Yeah.
you have a 17-foot road. You have a fire truck.
Can't
or you have
fit.
really just a UPS truck. It's like how somebody going to get by that. But the thought with the 8-foot sidewalk, as Paul said, normally it'd be 6 foot on each side. The compromise was the 8 foot. So that's
On
up
one
to you.
side.
On one side, that's up to you. Obviously, we're trying to be a more walkable community, so that's what we would normally require. They're doing sidewalks, and they've got a great sidewalk plan throughout their whole development.
Right.
It's just connecting it back to the Montverde Walks plan, as we call it, to the other sidewalks and to the trail.
And keep in mind that the road could, like Aaron was saying, it could get shifted possibly, 8th, 9th, and Temple.
Yeah, and ultimately, remember, our code does require the roads be brought up to the standards. And so
What'd you say?
Our code does require the roads be brought up to standards, so that's our current code.
Okay. So we don't have to approve or deny with that. It'll already be in the code.
Yeah, I guess what we're saying is staff is okay with a little bit less than what's in the code, but ultimately, there's a safety concern there, and there needs to be a sidewalk and a road. How that's, ultimately what the final design looks like and everything that, needs to be able to work with engineering and staff and the council to see where they want to go with things, but.
So the improvements to 8th, 9th, and Temple will be the developer's expense?
Correct.
Okay.
Most of those roads are in pretty horrible condition right now anyway, need to be
They're
repaved desperately.
They're definitely.
And they are, and they're entitled to impact fee credits. So it may not be the total impact street credits, but when a house is built, they pay street impact fees, and they will be entitled to get some of those credits back on a pro rata share, and the consultants have to figure out what that rate is. So it's not unreasonable.
And I'm sorry, with the traffic thing, you said this 2.2 cars, but is that considered like an ABC? Is there like a grade?
Yeah, so currently, I believe the level of service is a D for all 3 of those roads, and that level of service does not change with the added traffic.
So even adding on 139 homes, we're saying it doesn't degrade
The level of service,
the
no.
level of service, so,
No.
okay.
And you said it was 2.3 total, that would then be spread across all 3 roads.
All
So
3
that's really
entrances.
Like 0.8.
Correct, yeah.
0.8 cars per minute.
One
Yep.
car.
Assuming they all went down each 3 roads equally. but-
Right.
Depends on if it's a Mini Cooper or an F-350, but yeah, that's the 0.8.
As far as the community, do you know if there's going to be street parking allowed?
Right now, there is some street parking shown. When I say street, it's technically off street. It's parallel parking within the right of way, within the right of way. But as far as street parking, we have no.
You haven't gotten that far yet.
Well, as far as if people want to park on the street, of course it's their prerogative. If they want to park on the street, they can. These are fairly large lots with deep driveways. I can't say as an engineer whether or not people are going to park on the streets or not, but there's nothing saying that somebody could not park on the street in front of their house.
It's like an HOA thing, right?
Right.
They would say whether you could or couldn't. So
Parking
it's-
codes the town's parking codes would apply, but they
Okay.
have designated something not unusual, but you're seeing more of it, and I think it's good, the parallel parking spots that I
Correct.
mentioned that are designated. And that's actually a traffic calming effect as well.
Yep.
So they'll park, if it is going to be on the street, they'll be in a designated spot.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that spot here then, sorry, when I say here, on the right side of the screen, where it's closer to the boat ramp, that's not going to be parking, right?
That's area dedicated for future boat ramp improvements. Dedicated over to the town.
Oh,
So literally
that's going to be-
land that's being completely dedicated over to the town.
Okay, so it's up to the town then to decide what they would do with that, so whether it be green space or parking or whatever. Is that what
Yeah,
I heard
and
you say?
there's been a plan, and obviously that's the benefit of going through the
Okay.
PUD process. There has been a plan, as you know, for parking and
Yep.
and boat ramp access, so yes,
Yep.
that would be followed.
And do the lots here on the lake where you see the blue buffering, the drainage easement, so those are they, so it says it's owned by the HOA, so those properties are not actually going all the way into the water. So I think about normal lakefront, sometimes they say stop here and then this is wetlands and the property owner doesn't own that. Trying to understand the delineation
The
there.
property owner will own the land, but there is an easement
Okay.
for maintenance and responsibility that will be dedicated to the HOA.
Okay, so even though they own it, it's more for the
There will be
environmental
restrictions, there will be
protections.
restrictions put,
Okay.
no, like a deed restriction, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that basically just allows them, if they want to obviously put in a dock someday, they can.
They just can do
yeah,
it because
Go
they
to
own it.
St.
Okay.
John's,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I
they'll
was trying
own
to
it.
understand.
They'd have to have HOA approval
Right.
and
And
St. John's
John's,
approval,
yep,
yes.
yep, okay.
Mhm.
And the easement that you mentioned on the far left, future, is that going to be actually a trail put in, or is it, you know what I'm talking about, where it follows around? I think I heard you say it's a
That's
future.
an easement for
It's-
the town.
Correct.
So it's not going to be okay. So
Yeah,
it's
it won't be
potentially for
constructed at
future,
this
okay.
time. It's an easement solely dedicated to the town
Okay.
for a future trail.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's right on the east edge of the green?
It's the far west edge of the property. It runs straight north-south.
Straight line, that's
Yep.
what, straight up the edge,
Mhm.
okay, okay.
Oh,
Yep.
it's not that yellow?
It's not
The yellow-
That's the easement road.
Oh,
Permitted data down
that's
to
what I
the
thought it
road.
was. Okay, so
Yes.
that's straight. It's actually that orangish, whatever line. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see
It
that.
kind of looked like there was another band
Yeah, it
running
did.
in the green.
Yes, that's what it looks like.
But that's why, so it is that straight line going right up the edge.
Oh,
That
okay.
is correct,
So
yep.
it's- what road is that?
Taylor, well,
Kirkland?
it goes off.
Yeah, that's the private easement for the
No,
property
so-
owner.
Yeah, but all the way down is,
That's Kirkland.
that's Kirkland?
Yeah, where
Okay.
the kid needs to be Kirkland at
Okay.
the bottom of the map.
Okay.
And this development does not have access to Kirkland.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to understand, that
Yeah,
where,
so-
okay.
Yeah, so the entrances are, 8th, 9th, and Temple with no direct
But it-
access out of Kirkland.
but
They could
that's
turn,
just
obviously, at
easement.
some point.
That's just the easement the town's being given, so, okay, I was just
Yeah,
trying to understand.
Yeah, one is an easement, and the other one's a gravel easement that belongs to the private property owner that owns up there, the island up there.
Okay.
Are you building lead green homes?
Sorry, what was that?
Are these lead green homes?
So we are not the builder,
Okay.
so I can't speak on the builder. A builder hasn't been selected. We are the engineer and the owner, so I can't speak to that.
One thing that will be required, they'll have to be Water Star. That's just the town code, so whoever the builder is would have to adhere to Water Star. I know that's not LEED, but it is a conservation requirement.
Okay.
And if staff doesn't have any other questions or excuse me, the commission doesn't have any questions for staff or the applicant, I would recommend moving to public comment.
Real quick, side setbacks are 5 feet, so it's basically 10 feet between
Yes.
every house.
Yep, that's what we're asking for, correct.
So they're pretty narrow lots.
Yeah, that's very narrow, yep.
Your setbacks are on page 2.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
And within that, you're requiring all the AC units to be in the back of the property.
They would need to be.
They would
right.
have to be.
Mhm.
Obviously, they can't be in the front, they
And they
can't be on the side.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's narrow.
What's the lay of the land do you expect? Like flat? Or is it gonna have like a pitch between the two 5-foot?
Oh, they have to meet FHA grading requirements, so we have to have swales between homes with
So it'll be a slight slope.
There will be a slope, absolutely. Yep, has to be a minimum of, I believe, 5% for the first 5 feet. So you'll have a minimum of 5% away from the home, and then a 1% swale taking it either to the drainage
Front
ponds in
or
the
the
back
back.
or the street in the front.
Okay.
And I guess why is there a problem with using the town's code for, sorry, didn't hear her say.
Like I say, for the 7.5s.
Well, yeah, the 7.5s, probably because they're trying to squeeze in 139 homes, but, but I was also gonna say too about the, aesthetics, I think it was, which is the, I'm sorry, I must be getting tired, so.
You mean architectural?
Yeah, the architectural, remember they said that they wanted a variance against, I'm so sorry, my brain is fried.
We can go back to the variances.
It said no veneer, and so it was like the stone.
No brick? Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wondered, is there an issue with sticking with, I mean, other than maybe cost?
With the builders that we have, that ownership has talked to, there's a big push to allow for, to ask for brick and stone, because a lot of them use that, especially even in their higher end communities. And so it allows for more just differences in architectural facades in the front. And it's really being, it's a request of the builders and the products that they're currently offering, in the residential communities.
And the only thing I'm seeing here is that you're saying it has to be an average thickness, so is that right? Like the, sorry, page 10, it says granted with following condition, cultured brick and stone veneer must be used. Veneer must have an average thickness of 2.5 inches, is that right? When applied to walls, blah,
That's
blah, blah,
right.
right? Okay, so okay. It just seems odd that it's okay, but as long as it's a certain thickness. Is there a problem with veneer in general that we're worried about? Is it the thinness, or is it just architecturally the way it looks? Thinness?
I think it was the thinness.
The thinness,
Yeah,
okay.
the thinness. And
That was it,
I think that's
okay.
what we did on the exception for Willow Ridge.
Okay.
We required it to be a minimum
Just
stone,
thicker,
similar to
so
what
it-
we did out in front in the library where
Okay.
it has
Yeah.
some
So that's-
hardiness to it, so.
Okay.
Some of the cheaper homes, they have gotten to the point where they put this real thin stuff on, it doesn't last over time. so-
Okay, okay.
Or I guess cost savings, when people are getting some cost savings.
And we can't do alley loaded because the lots are skinny and,
That's
The lots are very, very deep.
The-
yeah, no,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
extremely long, right?
Yeah,
Like
they're
deep, yes.
yes, they're deep lots. If we went to alley loaded in a community like this, we wouldn't be able to have those the retention areas be a part of the lots like we had. It would add more impervious area. We'd have more asphalt, more curb, and so it would increase stormwater runoff, all of that. And so really this just provides one cohesive front-loaded community that allows us to have those natural stormwater features in the back and reduce impervious surface throughout the rest of the development.
And town has talked about that too. We agree with that, just with the topography of the land and less maintenance for town staff with the connections as well. And so we don't have to take care of alleys and things along that line in addition to the streets. Makes sense on this particular
Does the
part.
town though take care of the streets, or is it the HOA?
The town does.
The
Okay.
town, this is not deeded.
Okay, so it's, okay, I see.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
required to.
Okay.
Correct.
What is the average lot size, like dimensions?
It varies.
Just pull an average one.
Yeah.
Because I know that it was hard to read on the plan.
Okay, so the 70s, 75s, and 80s are 90% of all the lots.
But like, give me an average width and length.
I think 75 would probably be an average. I haven't done the calculation.
Okay, 75 by
Couple of hundred,
like 240?
yeah, something like that. Whatever you divide, a half acre by 75, I'll get you the number. My
right now.
engineering friend will do that.
It'd be more than, you're right.
It'd have to be more than 240.
If it was
Right.
an average 75, it'd be 2.
Because they're a minimum of a half acre.
It would be
gross.
291 feet.
291, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
They're really deep, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if I remember the ones, you don't have it here, but you do have it on
It shows the
in
building
big
pad,
one.
but
Yeah.
then it's,
I can't read it.
yeah, it didn't really have it all the way back. Okay.
Yeah, but this says 75 by 1. This says 75 by 1, sorry, I can't read that.
78?
Yeah, so that's not half an acre, is it?
We did ask for,
We requested a sheet.
Yes.
That showed each individual lot and what the depth was and the width and what that amount, because we wanted to make sure every single lot met the half acre
Yeah.
requirement. They did provide that. It was reviewed and it's correct.
I
Okay,
think that was
thank
in
you.
the, is that in the big?
That's on the
it's in
preliminary
big-
plat.
right?
Yeah.
It's on
Yeah,
there.
I think I remember seeing that, and I was trying to do the math and figure out if it's.
Yes, it's in
Okay.
there. We asked them and they did provide that, so it was.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
The side
Okay.
setback really concerns me for
Mhm.
what the aesthetics of the environment looks like and how that compares to the rest of the town. Willows Ridge, do we make an exception and give 5-foot setbacks on the sides in Willows Ridge?
Yes, Willow Ridge is 5-foot setbacks.
Willows Ridge does have 5-foot setbacks. Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, we can open, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We can open it up for public comment.
Giovanni, 632 9th Avenue, 9th Street, sorry. So you guys mentioned about improvements on 9th Street, 8th Street, and the other one is?
Temple.
Yeah, what about the adjacent roads that we have? Like on 9th Street, I have Cherry Avenue. There is no pavement, it's completely grass. Are there plans to make any improvements there with additional traffic?
I'll let Paul comment.
Yeah, the town has no plans at this point of asphalting any of those cross-grass roads.
The concern being getting vehicles in and out of the development, which would be 8th, 9th, and Temple, not the cross streets like Cherry that's unpaved and a few of the other
Oak.
ones. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
The trees.
Any other public comments? No, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Christy Anthony. I live at 18850 Kirk Island Lane.
Excuse me, if you have an extra copy, if you could give it to the applicant, please.
Oh, who did I give it to?
To one of the applicant representatives.
Oh, okay, yeah, I do have one.
Thank you.
I do have one extra for some reason. Actually, I didn't know that, but I had one extra. Anyway, I have 3 concerns. I'm going to consolidate this a little faster so I'm not here all day. But my understanding is we have an overflow pipe coming from the new subdivision going into the wetlands. When we have part of our easement goes between the lake and the wetlands. And whenever we have a heavy, heavy storm like a hurricane, our road gets flooded. We get all the runoff from the pines and also from Taylor Graybill Road, and we can't handle any more water going across that, or we won't be able to get out. That's the first thing. Second thing, I'm under the understanding, it may not be true or not, that my easement has been altered, and it cannot be altered because I have given no approval for that. That's the second thing. This is sort of crazy that I guess you understand that a lot of, I think it's like 18 or 20 lots, I was trying to count them, but my eyes aren't that good, that quarter of the acre, it has to be half acre, of course, quarter of the acre goes up to an 8-foot wall, and then on the other side it goes to the easement, and which they own part of the easement too, I guess, and goes the other quarter acres out in the wetlands. That wetlands, get back, I have 32 acres, all but 2 acres is all commercial agriculture. We have big trucks coming in there, we have tractors, we have, you know, a lot of equipment coming. That's part of it. We have a safety problem. The second thing is, I have to read this part, that I've lived there for 35 years, and here's what I've seen during that 35 years. I've seen panthers, bobcats, bears, foxes, coyotes, water moccasins, and even an alligator was walking up the easement going towards Taylor Graybill. I think he was lost about 15 years ago during a hurricane. And we're going to have people's backyards, and that wetlands is not just a wetlands there. That wetland goes all the way around the lake, all the way to the muck farms. That's why all these animals are coming around here. We keep squeezing them and squeezing them. And as a public safety, we're going to have kids out there playing in the wetlands. Coyotes like little kids and dogs too. But I mean, this is crazy. This is crazy from safety for you guys to approve something like this.
Can I ask you an applicant?
Yeah, go ahead and ask me.
Oh, I'm sorry, not the applicant, sorry. So I'm trying to understand where your property is in relation to this. If you want to show me on this, if you don't mind, I'm trying to, I know you're probably over.
My easement goes right down here.
This is your easement? Okay.
It goes right back here, and it's all back.
So you're saying this is part of your easement?
This is Kirk Island. It becomes Kirk Island.
Kirkland
Taylor
becomes...
Graybill becomes Kirk Island
Okay,
Lane. There's
yeah.
no sign that there's
Yeah.
people coming down.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay.
so then the easement goes around.
And just real quick for everybody to explain it, he owns the top of the property at the very left-hand side of the map you see, and if you could follow that little road down that swiggles around between the lots, that is his easement.
Just draw here, it's saying it's like here, and it goes all the way to here.
And it makes it permanent.
And then it goes like over here.
Right,
Is
we
that
have 17
okay?
acres.
Okay.
That side, and then I live 14 and a half acres on the island, which are we're still adjacent to it, which is
Okay.
nobody next to us.
Okay.
So we have 32 acres altogether.
Okay, sorry.
The same,
Yeah, you can go back now, sorry. I just need to see it. Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Me too. Sorry, I wanted you to, sorry.
I have to go back to Ocoee. Anyway, so that's a real safety problem for, for people out there. It isn't like it's a closed-in area. This area goes way out. And we have pigs too. Now pigs, get pretty crazy. They'll eat people. You know that. But the pigs aren't. And rabbits are okay. We have rabbits. Things like. But it's dangerous. Some of the stuff out. I mean, there's bobcat. We've seen the Florida bobcat out there several times. Even though they say there's none in Florida, and we've seen it. I mean, we've seen them out there. So anyways, that's the whole story. Anybody want to ask me a question?
So my understanding is your easement is effectively what we're seeing is the gray line road that's staying outside of the green, and then eventually.
Yeah, that must be where it is. And it makes a curve.
And then it curves and then.
It goes, yeah, it goes into the property actually.
Okay. So that would be what it's this line right here.
Oh, it's.
Across here, it's not this. This is the easement. This is a 30-foot easement that they want to give us for future.
Oh, that's the trail.
Trail.
Okay. This
Yeah.
is what he's saying. This is right here?
That's why I was confused.
So it's this pink line, actually, or whatever.
Gray.
What you see is a gray line.
Oh, pink. It could be pink.
We're actually in the county, actually. Thank God. No.
Yeah.
We're agriculture, you have to have building permits, okay?
So I guess I'm
He's
trying to
my-
understand then how does the property, how is it possible then the lots are even on that? If that's the case, like.
So Alex, just to clarify, so the lots do, as you see, come from their roads that they're building. There's a wall, the road, then they go out into the wetland area. So this is an easement that someone has over the top of someone's property for access. So this would be another way of looking at that as the town You may own a piece of land and the town and the electric company has an easement for the utilities that run on your land, so we have the right to access those, get to those, work on those. However, you still own the land. This is a very similar scenario. The property owner owns the land. However, he has the absolute right to access and utilize that road over the top of somebody's land for ingress and egress. You can't build a house on it, but you could travel on it.
I appreciate that, because I had absolutely no idea that that was actually, first of all, I didn't know that was even a road. So it's like there's property line, and then it's like going through someone's road.
And then the rest of the, rest of the yards are
It's not a road.
sort of weird, actually.
I mean, I've been back a long time ago. It's a path.
I guess the city will be maintaining that road too, won't they?
Which one is that?
My road.
No, it's a private easement.
Oh.
Yeah. So in Florida, there's
put a gate
really
on it.
2 points of access. You have a right-of-way, which is usually a city or county owned, so we own the actual physical structure that the cars travel on. Then you have an easement, which a property owner grants to another property owner for the right to access in and out of their properties. And you'll see this a lot more in rural areas. I'm sure Mr. Orlando deals with that a lot, where farmers get across another farmland or something along that line.
I don't know who would buy a house with half their yards on the other side of the wall in the swamp. But they're probably people from New York. We did that back in the 20s all the time to them.
Go
Well, you
look
know
at all
about
the
that.
small lakes around Florida where all the property lines go halfway into the middle of the lake.
Yeah,
It's-
that's true.
Yeah, it's not.
A lot of them like that.
So if the concern is also overflow water, then what's the retention plan to make sure, is there a plan to ensure?
Sure, I'll address that then when, after you do all the public comment, probably the applicant's engineer would be the best to come up, but generally water detentions are built to St. John's standards. I believe it's 100 or a double 100-year flood is what they're built to hold the water before it's released. The general rule, just in a layman's term, is you can't really release any more water onto someone else's property than what is currently being released in its unbuilt up state. And again, I would encourage you to write that down when we'll ask the applicant to come up for rebuttals. Let's clarify that with them, not the engineers.
Discuss it. Okay. Any other questions from Mr. Anthony?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My question is that everything I've seen to date showed that this was all landscape easement. I live
Okay.
on Neal Drive.
Please state your name and address. Sorry.
George Ganson-Muller, 17740 Neal Drive.
Thank you.
Okay. And now I see the grade and the elevations you meant. Is that coming towards us, or is that going to be drained towards them? Because everything I saw prior to this was open. And what I see with these, this stuff here, it's not going to do much. But again, I'm not going to get into that. I want to know, all these lots, how long are they, the depth?
They're about 280, right, Sean?
They can range anywhere from 180 to 400 feet or more.
Yeah, but were they going to be draining into his property or coming back out to Neal Drive? Because we never saw any of this. Nobody out there knows about these houses.
Well, the applicant engineer will explain that, but I'll try to summarize it and say that there is a drainage plan for all the lots that go to what you see is an easement plan. They're actually going to those easements where they're going to be, they'll go to landscape drainage areas.
Well, because they changed the elevations all along the lake, I would assume. They gotta raise that
okay.
place.
Along the lake, there'll be a swale that's required, as well as maintaining the native vegetation there.
Again, I'm not worried about that. I'm more concerned with Neal Drive. And it's the Sawgrass Pond, I don't know, you had some name on it. That's a state recognized pond, Franklin Pond. But the grading, if it's going out, because before it was a big, heavy-duty landscape easement. Now it's 30 feet. And with the hurricanes coming, man, that rain comes in and it's coming this way. And we're used to seeing 3 cars all day. You got 2 cars in that every minute. You know, this is gonna really knock the hell out of the neighborhood. Let anybody understand it. They should probably have, what, 4 cars to a house? They got money, everybody will have a car. So you got, well, it's gonna be a lot of cars, man, and they can't get out now. Try it at 9 o'clock when the school's here, and anything happens, we'll never get out. You know, this is, you know, it's good for you, not for us. And the biggest thing is which way the property is gonna be graded. It all goes in towards your land, which there should be. But with the elevation changes all along Lake, you're gonna have to shave down those hills to raise the grade along the pond. Over on Johns Lake, they raised the lake 10 feet. So that grade's gotta come, that dirt's gotta come from someplace. And I'm just wondering if all these houses, these skinny lots are gonna look like Bella Colina. That used to look pretty cool. It don't look so cool anymore.
I'm a little shorter. I'm Pam Cox. I live 17705 Broad Street, right on, and thank goodness it's not going to be on Broad Street. It's going to be on Temple. That green property on the right-hand bottom, is that going to be parking area for the people that have boat trailers when they go into the boat ramp?
No, they're proposing it just, Sean, a landscaped easement, is that correct? And future area where a trailer sidewalk can go through?
Exactly, yeah, sidewalk, that's for public access, so it won't be, you're not gonna see a large, you know.
I'm talking about that large green picture on the bottom right side.
It's
What
not
is that?
Not a road, not a road.
Yeah, it's not a
No, I know it's not a road, but it looks like land. I mean, I thought maybe it was a parking area for boat trailers to.
Oh, I'm sorry, the big one on the bottom right, that's their park.
That's going to be what?
A park.
A park?
Yeah, park.
Okay, you've got 139 homes going to be there. They're probably between $600,000 and $700,000, and 9 chances out of 10, anybody that's going to buy a house near the 4th largest lake in Florida is going to have a boat. I would say at least 50% of them. Where are they going to park the trailers when they go into our only boat ramp, because they don't have one for that development?
I don't have the answer, but we have the applicant answer that when they come up for.
Now, I know there was a fishing thing recently, and a bunch of people parked their boats at an angle across the street from my house, which was fine. It looked all right, but there was only 23. It looks to me like you're going to have a single car garage, and I would venture to say that 50% of the people that buy homes there are going to have a boat and a trailer and maybe a teenager. Where are they all going to park their cars and things? I mean, it seems to me they should have a double car garage. Anyways, somebody needs to figure out where they're going to, where they're going to park all these trailers when these people go into the lake. I mean, there's a lot of people that go in there right now. I live right there on the corner, and I love Montverde. Anyways, I just thought I'd bring that up because these people are going to have trailers that they're going to have boats in, parked in their garage or parked in their driveway. I hope they have a long enough driveway. Anyways, I just thought I'd bring that up because there's definitely going to be people that are buying property, buying houses there because they're on the 4th largest lake in Florida. And that's a wonderful place to go fishing. Just my opinion.
Any other public comment?
J.M. Oliveri, 17727 Sugar Pine Way. I've got a few different notes here, but I'm going to try and be brief. So to start with a meeting this large, I know that there's some notice requirements that you guys are supposed to do. Who do you have to tell, how far, how many, and when was that done?
600 feet. in, I believe it was 15 days, Sean?
Okay, so
Um,
my question then is, oh, this
You're
is
right.
the wrong map.
We were careful with notice requirements, 600 feet in the 14 days.
Can you go back to the zoomed out one for a second, if you don't mind? The one that just has the broader map of this particular area. That'll do. So right on that left corner there, I don't know where 600 feet is, but I know that entire area there is the Pines of Montverde, and I didn't get a notice. I was called out of my house this night to come down to this meeting in progress, so that's when I found out as the HOA of the Pines. So if you don't tell us, and we're literally right there, I don't know who you actually are telling. I would like to see, some information on how that actually happened and if it actually happened, because I can also tell you that right there on Broad Street, my mother-in-law has a house, and she didn't get one either. And that certainly looks like 600 feet. So if you're not telling people about these meetings, I assure you, with an empty room like this, and what you've seen going on here for other things more recently, this is because they don't know, okay? I'm going to start with that. So your information here is going to be limited to only those who actually knew about this meeting. I'm sure there's a lot of other concerns in the community, so that's something that should be noted as well. Traffic, we were talking about the study. They said it doesn't change it too much. Can I ask how many cars this study is based on, or what your assumptions are for how much traffic will be in this subdivision and how that would relate to the town? Because I'm assuming that there's a number of cars you're working with as an expectation, and I've heard it mentioned through, I think it was Pam, who said that there's going to be probably teenagers in cars and boats and things that may or may not have been considered. I want to know if that was considered in this study, because we haven't had any parameters told to us as to what that actually entailed. And I guarantee you, this is a huge bottleneck problem because they're all feeding to those same roads. And the traffic problem may not be right in these borders, but they're going to be in town, and they're going to be somewhere, and it's going to still be as a result of this, okay? You mentioned, somebody mentioned the fertilizer and pest controls in the community here. With our recent meetings with regards to the proposed sewer, there was a large mention about our responsibility for reducing that impact on Lake Apopka. And now we have a plan that nobody wants, and you want to bring in all that stuff we're supposed to get rid of. Seems counterintuitive to me. The number of houses is going to create a large amount of noise in this area, especially if they're going to, as mentioned, be above the canopy of the trees. All that sound's not going to be contained to this neighborhood. It's going to go out into all the surrounding areas. And if you guys need so many variances on our rules to build this, it's clearly not going to work, guys. With all of this and recent things, we have water concerns, sinkholes in neighboring towns. You have no street parking mentioned, but, they can park anywhere. So do you have room for space for actual street parking? It sounds like this is being crammed into a space that can't really support it. And that's what it feels like. So that's my concerns. I have some questions in there that I know they have to answer. So I'm going to just pass it over so they can be answered. And my opinion is if this is forced and doesn't work, then take a hike.
Any other public comment?
Maybe we should get people a copy of this. Nobody's seen this new one, and this is the first time I've seen it.
You'll
You
have to walk to the
approach
stand.
if you want to talk, you got to come up and state your name and address.
Well, he's talking about George Gansmo, 17740 O'Neill Drive.
Thanks.
I've never seen this before, and I can assure you my neighbors are not going to be crazy about it. And, why don't we have a copy? I had one old one, but it's nothing like this. The ones I have are much more elaborate with the landscaping. It showed swales all the way down, showed the whole property. We had a real idea of what was going on. This is totally foreign to me. And as far as the traffic, that's a joke. These people got money. They're going to have 4 cars to a house. Who's kidding who? I landscaped every development out here. I know how many cars come in and go out. I did every one on 50. I've did it for 20 years. I know all about it in and out. And this is, I just have a hard time seeing how this is going to work. And 2 cars per minute going out in the school, come on, let's be real. You know, this, you're just making this stuff up. Give the people an idea, send us out to them. You know, I'm 300 feet, he's looking 600 feet. You know, make the people, well, let's keep the town the way it was. This is a nice town, that's why we're here. Show more respect for your people.
Any other public comment?
I want to make one more comment. I'm Pam again from 17705 Broad Street. I'm just wondering, why is this company not required to have their own boat ramp and parking area somewhere on their property instead of relying on the one that belongs to Montverde? I don't know, I haven't ever heard anybody say that they should be required to have their own boat ramp for their development. So I'm just curious on that question.
Okay. Any other public comments? Okay, we'll let the applicant come back up and answer some of these questions or all of these questions, please.
Get there. All right. So I was writing down the questions, so hopefully I caught all of them. Some of them were similar. So the first question regarding the access easement, we are not proposing to touch the access easement. We are leaving it alone in its existing condition. We don't want to touch it. We have no plans to touch it whatsoever. It's not an exclusive easement. But even still, we are not proposing to touch or modify it. There was a question regarding drainage into those wetlands, flooding, and completely understand the concern, especially with the storms we've gotten recently. We have to, as the applicant, as the engineer, I have to meet the state requirements for stormwater retention and then the release of that stormwater. So Paul did a pretty good job of explaining that. We have to meet pre-post discharge, right? So I cannot send any more water downstream to a neighbor that wasn't already going there before, right? I have to meet those same rates or be less than that. So our proposed stormwater management plan, we will send equal to or less than the stormwater that was going there originally. That is a state requirement. That's St. John's, town of Montverde. And so we will not be sending any additional flow either to any of our neighboring properties that wasn't already going there to begin with. And that has to be reviewed by St. John's River Water Management District. We've already made a submittal to them. We've had conversations with them. They've been reviewing this plan. They've actually been a part of how this plan has been modified over the past 18 months that we've been working with the town and even St. John's on this. So kind of, I'm going to jump to that because we're talking drainage. There was a question about, hey, what's happening? There's a lot of topo on this site. Absolutely. There's a lot of topography on this site, and we have to be able to make it buildable, but we're trying to work with the natural landscape as much as we can. I have a lot of experience with this, with projects, single-family projects in Claremont, which have a lot of fall, a lot of topography as well, and making those work and ensuring that we're not causing adverse impacts to our neighbors. One is actually on Johns Lake that somebody actually mentioned. We weren't touching the lake, but we have a project that drains to Johns Lake. As far as the southern boundary, we are not discharging any additional, we will not be discharging any additional water. I got to kind of caveat this with, we're at the rezoning stage, not the final engineering stage. So I will say that, but we will be required to make sure that we do not send any additional water that was ever going in any direction. And so, yes, we will have to grade the site, make it work to meet FHA requirements, Town of Montverde requirements, ADA requirements, but we will not be modifying the drainage patterns from what they are today as far as sending more water to any of our neighbors. That kind of talked about the outfall to the pond, the south side drainage. There was a question about how many trips in total. I think Usually with a traffic study, the biggest concern is your peak hour trip, because that's when you're going to see the most rate of cars at any given hour, right? It's either the AM, right, or PM peak hour trip. But there was a question about total trips, and so that was in the traffic study as well. And it is a total of 1,366 trips per day, right, for this development. That's a little less, it equates to almost 10 trips per day per house. So there's somebody who's asking, where does the data come from? That comes from national traffic study count, traffic data from around the entire country, published data that's used for single-family residential communities. It's not a number that we make up. It literally comes from published engineering data. And then on-street parking, we are providing parallel parking on some of the streets to essentially, it does two things. Provides that parking off the street and also slows traffic down. When you see a car parallel parked, you're a little bit more careful as you're going down the road. And then boat parking, that's an amenity that we actually, we have a couple different amenities across the development with open spaces. That's just not an amenity that we're proposing as part of this development. And so in working with the town, we are providing additional land to the town to enhance their current boat ramp and enhance that to a level that is better than it is today, and gives that area more the ability to park in the future, more boats. But we are not proposing any sort of additional boat ramp in our community. That's not an amenity that we're really looking for. And as far as answering a question of what's somebody going to do if they buy a boat and where they're going to park it, just like I have my own boat and I live on Lake Conway in Orlando, I park it in storage because if I don't have space in my driveway, I have to go find a lot to store it in, or I park it on my driveway or in my backyard, wherever I can fit that. However, I'm not the owner of any one of these lots, and similar to a car, you will have to find the space. If that is if that's a recreation you would like to do and use the boat ramp, you will have to find a space to keep that boat no different than any other resident. I think that was the majority of the questions. If there's any additional questions, or Brian, if there's anything else that you'd like to add.
We haven't worked yet with the future builder, and when that happens, it's quite likely that there'll be a homeowner's deed restriction to not parking boats in the front drive in these houses. So that's most likely what's going to happen.
I mean, if I could just interject just about the public space for the parking. There'll be parking spots designated on a park plan where the trailers will be, and obviously if somebody parks outside of those spots or illegally, they could be fined or ticketed in a sense. So what would happen? Sure, somebody could probably try to park in somebody's yard or something like that, but when we did, I would think that we would do a site plan for the park, part of this for the town side of the boat ramp, and have the designated spots, and then put up signs to prohibit parking, especially in people's yards. Just a thought there.
So is that why we see the white step in at that park from where Broad Street is all the way down to the water? It kind of hooks up. You can see the 30-foot future walkway easement in green, and then it zigzags over. But if you drew a straight line, that is proposed, or what's the proposed land that's going to be given to the town to create boat parking in the right there at the ramps. Is that true?
I think they're dedicating 40 feet for an 80-foot wide right-of-way is what I think the PUD has.
Yeah, that's what I thought I read. That would effectively be that white area that's
Right.
not.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions? So the
want to say something. What they
The
say,
public comment is closed.
but it's not true what they said about this drainage. You got 100 acres of
We're
sand,
gonna have to
and you
allow
got
the applicant
pavement
to
and
respond again.
concrete, and you're telling me it's the same amount of water? That's not true at all, and they know that. That's stupid.
Okay, do you want, the applicant, would you like to comment since he?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, no worries. Yes, there will be more impervious area. There will be more runoff from the site, and all of it has to get directed to either our on-site retention areas or the swale along Apopka. We have to meet, again, we have to meet state and town requirements for the amount of water that we have to capture on site and discharge then. We have legal rights to discharge water in the natural way it flows today. That's just natural Florida drainage law. And so we will be required to not send any additional water that was never going to a property. We have to make sure we're meeting that as part of the design. So we will be retaining the water within the ponds and either percolating that down into the soil, or if it's a significant storm event, we're talking 25-year storm event, right, hurricane level, that's the threshold that we have to meet, which is a 25-year storm event for this area. We are allowed to, we have to be under whatever is going there in existing condition, whatever is being discharged today. And so we will retain up to that level, and then from there we are allowed to discharge existing conditions. So, any questions on that?
Okay.
I have one other statement. I spent 27
Nope.
years straightening
I'm
out
sorry.
St. John's water management's problems.
Okay, we
They
gotta,
take a
we
lot of
gotta,
work.
public comment has been closed, I'm sorry.
I had questions that were,
Um,
can I repeat them so they can be answered? They were yes, but they were previously stated. But it's a previous statement that was, questions that weren't proposed by the,
We can't keep opening public comment.
not technically reopening.
They presented, they did the rebuttal. If the questions didn't get answered, they didn't get answered.
Okay. Okay, so, here we are. Just looking for a motion in any direction.
I mean, I think the 5 foot between the lots is pretty, it's very, very tight. And, I mean, it's something you see in much more constrained homes. I get that there's very deep varying things, but that's pretty tight. I mean, that's like a very small, I mean, you're right on top of your neighbor, maybe not your rear neighbor, but your side neighbor is right there. I mean, there's several, I mean, it's better than I've seen before in the past. Let's put it that way, but, I mean, there's still a lot of concerns about traffic I have, about the roads may or may not be updated. I know sounds like that's a requirement.
The roads, yes.
Are being asked of the applicant to do.
At their expense.
At their expense, but I think it's the number of vehicles coming in and out, based on what they said is the traffic study, is still pretty significant. Did I hear the number right, 10,000? Was that right? I wrote that down, and did I hear that right?
I thought it was 1366.
Please use your microphones. I'm having a hard time hearing you, and
sorry.
they're not going to be able to
I'm
hear
sorry.
you.
I believe it was 1366, and it was equivalent to
1366,
10
that's it.
trips per
10 trips, that's it. Sorry, I heard the 10K in my brain.
per day per house.
Yeah. So when I think about where this dumps into, right, or especially the lakeside, and then it dumps into that small area, I don't know. I still have concerns about the traffic, I guess, and size of between the lots, the traffic impacts. I don't know. You know,
I don't like the 5-foot side setbacks, but we have it in Willow Ridge and they have a lot of green space, so I'm not so concerned about that. The traffic is a little bit concerning, but only because it's coming out on 3 avenues. I think they originally had it coming out on 1 or 2. 1, thank you. So they did increase it from 1 to 3. It's a half-acre minimum, and the town
Mr. Mike,
verified it.
please. Sorry.
Originally, it was going to be 244 homes, and there was going to be Temple and 9. So only 2 get it out. Now there's 3 and half as many homes.
Yeah. I think there was 1 for sure entrance and exit and possibly a second, but yeah. But as Paul mentioned, they will be widening the 3 roads to 24 feet wide with an 8-foot sidewalk on one side.
We've talked a lot about the site zoning. The other one that stands out to me is H1.F on the landscaping in regards to the non-potable water. They're asking for a waiver that they're not able to come up with some sort of agreement to get non-potable water, that we allow them to use potable water. And I personally have a lot of concerns with our consumptive use permit right now. And if we're adding 139 homes and allowing them to irrigate with potable water, that's going to be an additional load on our already strained potable water use permit that we're trying to get renewed right now, right? So why would we ever grant an exception to that?
Yeah, so that's correct. I mean, for all intents purposes, I'll have to look how that's read. I think our intent would be they would be hooked to a non-potable water source with every means possible. I mean, there may be a scenario or a time there where that can't be done immediately right away. One of the things we're doing, the other developments, what we did, we have our potable water going there. Then we have been providing non-potable through shallow wells. As we're going through our CUP, DEP saying now you got to start metering like potable water. So it's kind of like they're actually going to be more expensive to turn those on than just send potable water to them at this point. So that's just how DEP is starting to tighten up on things. So I would, as you get there, I would ask that maybe Anita could help us tweak that language that board would say, yeah, they have to have a irrigation. Sometimes they have to put in 2 meters anyway, 1 for irrigation, 1 for potable. But we need to make it, the process of working through St. John's to get out of the lake may take some time. And I think we just need to be clear that we need to see an expeditious process working through that. We also haven't had the opportunity to sit down. There may be an opportunity for a joint project now that we signed an agreement for that big water storage tank where they could hook into that tank, and as the town's going to be working toward to get through St. John's water anyway, so that may be another scenario. They may have to hook into that tank and provide the line to that while we work on or work out some agreement to share in the cost to get to the water, since that would benefit the town as well. So yeah, when you get ready to make your motion, if I guess I would suggest Anita maybe help us with language that says that to every means necessary, they'll have to work toward doing that, something along that line.
And one option that we also discussed too was a HOA control of the irrigation as well through the put.
No.
No? You don't want that?
No.
Okay. We don't want that.
Scratch that.
Yep.
Rewind.
Yep.
So that provision is they would just be using the potable water for temporary irrigation to be utilized during the landscape establishment period.
Oh.
It's not I'm on page 11, if that's the one you were looking at, number 10. So it's only to them to get the landscaping established, and then they would no longer be using it.
Because then you'll be drawing from the lake.
Again, you'll have to, we won't be able to bring them in, but we'll work with them to make sure, I mean, the lake is the preferable source
Yeah.
to draw from. But that is what St. John's is pushing us as a city to do.
Can you roll back the slide to actually show the slides they were presenting, where the various exceptions that they were asking for was? Because I don't believe what we read up there is what matches this. And that's where I think I've gotten confused.
Yeah, and I would definitely refer to your PUD, so. Did I go past it? All right. Yes, I guess everybody can really pull those mics up, please. I did just get a text on that too. People are having trouble. Let's see, retaining walls.
So I think maybe what the slide is the language that's in the neighborhood standards. The PUD has what the requirement is and for what they're proposing and the justification for that. So the PUD ordinance is what's going to control, is not the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, and these are their slides, so the PUD again is, yeah. So,
yeah, I think I took that as they were asking for a complete exception to that statement, right? Not a temporary exception to that statement, which is what's
that's how the slide appears, correct?
So that, yeah, the justification for granting it in the PUD ordinance indicates it's only to establish the landscaping, so it's temporary.
I see that now, yes, and that I'm okay with, but like,
yes,
long term, no, we can't do that. I mean, we can't allow that because they're gonna. All of these homes are going to have nicer homes, nicer lawns. They're going to want to irrigate. They're going to consume at a higher level than other homes, and we already have that problem, so we don't want to make that problem worse. So.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Can I get a motion? If there's no other questions. Discussion.
We need a motion.
As a reminder, you can make a motion to approve, a motion to deny, or a motion to approve with additional changes or conditions.
Table.
I think the current proposal is a significant move in the right direction from what was previously presented, 18 months ago now, I think, when it was a much higher density and all of that kind of stuff. I think it's getting a lot closer to the feel of Montverde and keeping Montverde, but I'm still, the 10 feet between houses is killing me, even though we've done it over in Willows Ridge already. Maybe I need to get up there and actually drive through Willows Ridge and see it in person. But that's probably my biggest hang up. And then some of the lots 8 through 14 that are only 50 feet wide, but with 5-foot setbacks on each side. Those are little bitty frontages. I don't know. That's why I am hesitant to make a motion. I feel uncomfortable with those issues. So.
So again, we can make a motion with conditions.
Yes, I mean,
You
you
have
can
three
make a
choices.
recommendation to council, you know, to increase the setbacks to whatever you want to see them at, or if you want greater side setbacks on those certain lots. I mean, you can make that as part of your motion and recommendation.
So obviously, it's 5 feet short from a typical setback.
7.5 would be typical, so each lot, it would be 2.5 feet.
Right, I mean, between the two houses, correct?
Correct.
Right.
You can make the motion.
So just to kind of say the same thing, I agree, everything you said, it's closer. I'm still concerned about traffic. I'm not sure I understand the easement part still, to be honest with you. I heard what they said, I heard what the other person said. I'm not sure I still understand how that's gonna work if someone has access and it's behind someone's house and their lot continues on beyond that. It means someone's gonna be driving through. It just seems very, I understand it's not exclusive, that seems odd. The amount of cars coming in and out, and then the 5 foot, those are my concerns that I have. But it is better. I mean, it's definitely better. It's definitely moving, definitely has moved in the right direction in my mind. I still have concerns. So that's why I'm not ready to file a motion that says to move this forward, so.
More questions, then yes, you can have more dialogue with the applicant.
So I have a question of the applicant. Have you guys modeled what this would look like with 7.5 foot side yard setback requirements? And what would that do to the overall density of total build, total number of units?
No, we haven't. I mean, the plan and talking to the builders has always been that 5 foot setback, and so that's the plan that we've moved forward with. Obviously, going to a 7.5 foot setback, you're looking at either smaller product sizes, right, smaller homes, or a change in the lot yield potentially. Some of the homes, I'll be honest, some of these very large homes, large lots. Yes, there is a 5 foot side setback. Many of the homes could easily be built. I'll give you an example. If you look at the project that I just completed in Claremont, we had 7.5 foot setbacks on 85 foot wide lots, very similar to this development. The majority of the homes are about 50 feet apart from one another because the folks that are moving there, they don't need that wide of a home. They're actually looking for a deeper home. Right, and so the setbacks, yes, they were allowed 5 feet, but many of the homes that were actually being built have a much greater setback between each other than 10 feet total, 5 feet on either side. It really ends up becoming whatever the market and what the builder and what the homeowner ends up wanting that house to look like. This just gives the flexibility to place that on the lot.
Yeah, I've got
Go ahead, Brian.
a little bit of a response to you. So I'm an architect, urban designer. I've been doing this for 45 years. It's way too long. The key to this is not separating the houses. It doesn't add any value aesthetically. What counts is the design of the buildings, the treatment of the front yards, the landscaping, the street trees, and trying to do sustainable landscape, as opposed to lots of grass, lots of St. Augustine, lots of pesticides, lots of fertilizer, lots of mowing and blowing, which drives people crazy. So there's no benefit, I can assure you, in making that extra distance between the homes. But we want to do the rest of it right, and that's what really counts. And I think if you pick up on that theme and keep going as we go into more detail with, when we really have a builder at some point, that's where the focus ought to be.
So ironically, if you increase the side setback, then that's going to decrease their density, which will decrease the traffic.
My concern is the traffic. That's my main concern, is just the traffic.
Can the applicant come back up and just talk about the traffic? Because I think these numbers are, you guys understand this better.
When did you do the study? Who did it?
Sorry, so the question was just to explain the traffic a little bit more.
Yeah, just go into more detail. I mean, we got the numbers, but
Right,
just
the 1,366
dissect it.
trips per day, right?
Yes.
That's total trips in a 24-hour period. Again, what
Okay.
most, when we get into final engineering, the number that really counts typically is your peak hour, right? The amount of trips during that rush hour traffic, either in the morning or in the afternoon, not really kind of the ebb and flow throughout the day. But that being said, yes, 1,366 is the number, right? It's a little less. It's like 9.85 is what the average comes out to be. Trips per home or per lot per day in a 24-hour period. The peak hour, and that's spread over the three separate entrances, and the peak hour, again, is the 135, which is approximately 2.2. Again, that's during a 1 hour time period. It's about 0.8 cars per street if you break it down that way per entrance during the peak hour per minute. What
8
else?
cars per minute?
0.8.
0.8.
0.8 per entrance.
Okay. 0.8.
We'll just call it under one. Yeah.
Under 1 car per minute. Okay.
Can you define trip? Car comes in, car goes out. One trip?
One
Or is one coming in as a trip and another going out as a trip?
It's one trip is a trip in or a trip out, right?
In or out. So 1,366 one-way transits effectively is what you're talking about.
Either in or out, total, correct.
That's not
Not round trip. No.
Right.
Sorry, thank you for clarifying.
That 2,006.
No.
Right.
In and out.
In and out, yes. And I mean, the existing roads, I mean, there's residences using these existing roads today, right? Generating the traffic that they're generating today, we're talking about adding in peak hour again, less than 1 car per minute per each of those streets.
Where did you get the 1 car?
Less than 1 car per minute. What we've been communicating over and over again, it's the 135 cars in the PM peak hour. If you divide that over the over 60 minutes, right, and then divide that by 3 streets, that comes out to less than 1 car per minute. Yeah.
Per day during that peak
During
hour.
the peak, yes.
And what time is peak hour?
Peak in the traffic study is usually 5 p.m. rush hour traffic, and then 7 a.m. in the morning. There is the traffic study does take into consideration the 9 a.m. School traffic, and that is the biggest traffic contributor, right? As far as the deficiencies on the existing road is obviously the school traffic.
The last time all of this was discussed, one of the big issues was traffic running through Montverde Academy
Yes.
during the get in and get out times. But since then, we've now got a new plan being worked on to add the new side access road to shunt a lot of that traffic off of 455 through MBA and coming out here on Porter. Do we think that's going to have a significant impact on what we see today, which is ridiculous? Everybody's stuck right here at 455 for, I don't leave my house at that time of day for a reason. So,
Yeah, so I guess some of the future things that may impact traffic, you know, I won't say how it will affect it, but just so you could make your own judgments, is Montverde Academy is building a road around the back, essentially where the pool volleyball court is. They'll go through that parking lot, then go around the backside of the buildings and come out on Porter. And the goal is to get some more cars off of 455. Then they're going to add a traffic personnel person at the corner of 455 and Porter to assist those cars that are coming during Porter during their load and unload time. So in addition, the Academy has just submitted plans which got approved by the council. They're going to build a elementary cafeteria on this side, yeah, on this side of the school, which will decrease the kids crossing during that lunch hour that we have, which should help on traffic in there. We have been working with Commissioner Parks with the county, with the MPO, to look at a complete street of all of 455 from Fosgate to the roundabout, through downtown, through the school, through the roundabout. We're on the priority list. Those things take time with MPO. We are also pursuing, the council approved for me to pursue a legislative priority, and schools have shown interest in helping, of trying to get some funding for crosswalk improvements and lane improvements along in front of the school in the downtown area. And we also reviewed, we have $19 million in grant funding that we just got for storm projects, which may allow us to do some work on 455 from downtown to Fosgate. That would include some traffic calming things along that line. So the town is very aware, you know, there's a traffic issue there, and we're working through the resources to try to, you know, not because of them, but regardless, because, you know, it's what we want to do for our citizens, is try to prove that, and the school is willing to, has shown some interest in helping with that as well. We're also pursuing impact fees from the county that the school pays in to see if they can maybe possibly use that to put in left turn lanes and on 455 to the entrances. That really seems to be the bottleneck, is the kids crossing in turn lanes. So there are a lot of things that we are, I would say, in a planning process at this point of looking at to assist with that. And you could take what each of those would do with your own judgment as living here of how that would help.
so effectively there has been some significant motion forward in plans to improve the overall flow of traffic through downtown, through Montverde Academy, since this was really last all discussed in depth 18 months ago.
That's correct. Can't make a promise exactly where it'll get to. I know the road around the backside of the school is happening because it's already being constructed. Some things, if we can make the funding work, we already have some funding. If we can make it work, the scope of the grant project, that 455 I mentioned, the funding's there. We just got to figure out how to make it work. And the other stuff is what we're pushing. But we've been talking with our, what's the people that talk to the legislators? We've been working with the lobbyists, with both of our engineer and working with the county, and there's a big emphasis on safety improvements this year, and so we think we would have a decent shot of maybe getting some of those safety improvement dollars.
Do you have any other questions about traffic while the applicant is up here?
Thank you.
You good?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
And one thing I'll throw out there as a suggestion is your deliberation. It sounds like the side yard setbacks obviously are also playing heavy on you of where that looks. Obviously, you could make a motion with the requirement that they are 7.5. You can also consider a motion where maybe 50% of them have to be a 7.5 and give them some flexibility where those 5 works and 7.5 work. That way they could maybe try to make that work within their plan. Those are just all things that you can think about through the process if that assists you in your deliberations. So you have some flexibility in that recommendation.
Yeah, that's a really good idea because obviously they stated the house could be smaller. It's typically not used to the maximum.
So I'm looking at the map, I'm looking at the lots. The ones I have the biggest concerns about are the 50s and 60-foot lots, right?
Okay.
But also looking at the way that the 50-foot lots are mapped, which are lots 8 through 14. I would suggest, I know they won't be happy with it because it reduces the count, but if they were to take those same 7 lots and combine them, they could actually make 5 70-foot lots instead of 7 50-foot lots right there. Which are less likely to have this problem with the thing, and then change the requirement on the 60-foot lots to be 7.5 foot. Because once you get into 75, 70, or 70, 75, and 80-foot lots, these houses aren't going to be 80 feet wide, minus 5 feet. You're going to end up with bigger size, but you effectively would be reducing the lot density by 2, and eliminating the 50-footers, giving them 3 more 70-footers, giving them 5 more 70-footers, and then you just got to figure out the lot 7.5 foot requirements on the couple 60-foot lots. That would make it feel less packed in. So that'd be my mouth.
It's interesting.
Follow that.
Yeah.
And I think I could summarize you would make a recommendation that the minimum lot size be 60 foot and have a 7.5 foot side yard setback.
That would be the easy way to summarize it, is that yes, all lots have a minimum 60 foot with a 7.5 foot setback. However they want to facilitate that, I just was an easy facilitation just by looking at where the lots are currently aligned. I was suggesting, so.
I'm fine with that.
I like it.
Just make the motion.
I motion that ordinance 2024-44 be approved with adjustments, is that the word I'm looking for? With adjustments to require minimum lot frontage of 60 feet and 7.5 foot side yard setbacks as a minimum for all lots.
I'll second it.
All those in favor, say aye.
If we could do a roll call on that, please.
We'll do a roll call on that one.
Board Member Wadsworth.
Yes.
Board Member Broker.
No.
Board Member Johnson.
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes. Okay, so we have ordinance, oh, I'm sorry. Resolution 2024-158.
This one just be off the table because it's approving the preliminary plot that now would have to change.
Well,
So you can consider it
With-
with that same change,
with the
and then they
change.
would have to make revisions before it could go to council. Or it can be tabled, whatever the board prefers.
It might be easier to do it with the change so they don't have to come back.
Yeah, and that probably wouldn't be heard till December, or till January anyway, at the council.
So
that
give
would-
them time to update their plan.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that correct?
My recommendation would be to approve it, if they're inclined to approve it with those changes, that would give them time to make the changes to the plan before it goes to the council.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And not come back to P and Z.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm saying the same thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So would you like me to read the?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Resolution 2024-158, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Montverde, Florida, granting preliminary plat approval for a 139 single-family lot residential subdivision generally located north of Osgood Road, east of County Road 455, and west of Lake Apopka within the Town of Montverde, Lake County, Florida, and providing for an effective date. The preliminary plat approval is quasi-judicial. It's not policy setting or legislative, so your decision must be consistent with the comprehensive plan, the land development code, and the PUD ordinance as you've recommended approval. And it has to be supported by competent substantial evidence. The code identifies the information that they were required to provide for a preliminary plan. That information was provided. And then you are also required to disclose anything if you did site visits or had any communications about the preliminary plat application. So now would be the appropriate time to disclose anything if you need to.
The only thing is I walked the 4 roads, 8th, 9th, Temple, and Lakeside.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have all the answers. Do you have any questions? Want to open it for the applicant to come back up?
Sure. Brian Ashby, Kimley Horn, 200 South Orange Avenue. No additional information on this item. I did have one question though for staff. With a revision or a requested, with the approval with conditions, right? Would those conditions need to be made to the preliminary plat prior to that going to town council? Or would the current preliminary plat go to town council because this is a recommendation of the board? Just so we understand kind of the process and what needs to be done on our end.
You could go forward with the plan as you have now. I think we would recommend that you
Right.
have an alternate plan to show the council so they can see both.
Understood. Thank you.
Or you may get tabled.
Understood. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Any public comment?
This is an absolute disgrace. There's nobody in the town to represent the people. Nobody knew about it. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Any other public comment? Okay. We'll close public comment and move forward.
Personally, I would like to see how they choose to implement 60-foot lot frontages and 7.5-foot setbacks, because it's going to change the way the preliminary plot is.
Okay. So
Or
you,
I would want to approve the plot.
That's
I'm-
fine.
Right, I'm giving them carte blanche effectively, that says as long as they meet those two requirements, it's done, right? So
So you could make a motion to table it and have them show you that.
I would make a motion to table resolution 2024-158 until the time that they can return with adjusted plot that shows us how they're implementing those two changes on the previous motion.
Okay, do roll call on this one.
Board Member Wadsworth?
Yes.
Board Member Broker?
Yes.
Board Member Johnson?
Yes.
Chairwoman Arlano?
Yes. Okay, so now we just have some updates, town manager updates. Oh, do you need, excuse me.
If you could wait and talk with us for a little bit after the meeting?
Sure.
Thank you.
We'll need to do some scheduling.
Okay, so town updates.
Merry Christmas.
Aw, thank you. Oh, yeah, and the beautiful decorations. Thank you, Town of Montverde, right? Exceptional. Town planner updates.
Nothing to report. Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you. And town attorney updates.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and see you in 2025.
Awesome. Leave it to her to get it all in. Okay, can I get a motion for adjournment?
I'm final motion to
that we
adjourn.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
It's almost a half a shift. It's almost 4 hours. Yeah. It's 10:15. And we're still hated.
That was a good meeting. Well, pretty intense. This guy's first one.